Welcome in to Check the Mic. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson, live on YouTube. Big show here today, Sam. Coming at you from the Bill Belichick is a fraud, Patrick Mahomes is overrated, and Sam Monson was wrong about Tom Brady.
And Justin Herbert.
And perhaps Justin Herbert. Arena. Don't want to add that yet to our billionaires naming of the arena, the studio. It's all brought to you by FanDuel. And we have it's a very special episode of Check the Mic.
Yeah?
Because we need to, it's been a long week of stuff.
It has been a long week.
Super Bowl, voting, and we got to react to what's going on.
Let's go.
Lots of reaction time. How you doing?
Doing all right. Doing all right.
Off-season season, as we know, we had mock draft Monday. On Monday, go back and check it out. Sam and I alternated votes. We got some positive feedback, some negative
really?
Too. Cowboys fans.
I mean, I just
didn't
assume
like my pick. I mean, there's all
it's a mock draft. I would assume all the feedback is negative.
Expected negative feedback, but we got some positive feedback. A couple like nice pick.
I'm so
great job by the Browns.
You know, it's like people get desensitized to violence or just the world in general. Like I am now so desensitized to negative feedback. Yeah. Like there's nothing that could land anymore.
You can repost the round one the day after. Friday morning. It's like worst mock ever. Doesn't matter.
Oh, I mean, yeah, it doesn't even register. So.
It's an extended Shouty Show version.
Yeah, well, apparently there's quite a lot of them, and of a lot of Shouty Show reaction to my vote.
So we're just gonna get right into it. Sound good?
Yeah.
It's all. Why are we here? Because
why are we here?
You voted for Justin Herbert for MVP.
Correct. Yes, I was the lone voter, the lone wolf that voted for Justin Herbert for MVP. Two people who remain anonymous, sensibly, by the way. Like, I'm generally all for transparency in votes, which is why I put mine out there. But having lived through mine in the last few days, if you're the two people that voted for Josh Allen, you should absolutely keep quiet. Do not put it out there.
This is one of those things that'll
keep quiet.
It'll come back in like 2058 or something. Hey, remember back in 2025? I had the Josh Allen vote.
Yeah.
Statute of limitation. Nobody's going to be mad at me now. Someone's going to come out.
Yeah, I wouldn't, generally speaking, I'm in favor of transparency, but I don't think it's worth the hassle at this point. So if you're one of the two Josh Allen votes, I'd keep quiet now.
Stay quiet.
And then most people voted for either Stafford or Drake May.
All right, it's Shouty Show time. Let's get to it.
I've thought about it very deeply.
I liked how he started it with, I've thought about this long and hard.
I trust the backup quarterback more than I do Dak.
This is why Skip Bayless is the master of the Shouty Show segment.
I can't do it anymore. It is year 6.
It's just a never-ending arms race of idiocy between loud, obnoxious people. We are the antidote to that.
It was a special week last week, walking around Media Row, Radio Row, see Cam Newton, Stephen A. You just see our Shouty Show heroes walking around in person.
Yeah, absolutely. They were all over the place.
Having crossover episodes, meeting with each other. It was a big week last week.
Stephen A. on Cam Newton show was something pretty special.
Yeah. So let's get right into it. Let's go with our first one. What do we have?
I still hear people say that you and I ruined sports media.
Yeah.
That we destroyed it with our style or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That it's Screaming A. Smith and Skip Baseless, right? That's all we ever heard. Right. And if I may say so myself, I think we revolutionized it.
It all did.
I don't know their names. I know your guys'
Thank
you know?
Right.
And the ratings would say we were pretty good.
Damn right.
And I would say that no one has ever quite matched the chemistry that maybe God above gave us. But it's just hard to find. You can't teach it, coach it. It just worked. Mm-hmm. And it was entertaining, and it was enlightening, and it was just fun. Yeah. And I think it was fun for everybody. Like Gerald grew up on it and has always told me he just never had so much fun watching something as watching us.
Right. Well, you're right. And I think that it's a lot of BS when it comes to that stuff because you got a lot of jealousy, a lot of envy, because people look at what we've been able to achieve and they're like, why them? Why not us? But I often use the analogy, not necessarily an analogy, but I often say, you looking at me at First Take. Where were you when I was a high school reporter for the New York Daily News? Where were you when I was covering high school sports for free?
Where did it go wrong?
So that was Skip and Stephen A. reunited on Underdog, did it, right? I didn't watch the whole thing, but I'm kind of glad I got a heads up that this was one of the takes, because I've heard Stephen A. say things like this before, where, what's his name? Dan Le Batard confronted him sort of face to face and said, look, I hate what you have done to the sports media landscape. And they push back on that a lot, and they say things like this, right? We revolutionize sports media and look at our success and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, but I was trying to think, organize my thoughts when I knew that this was coming up to figure out just how far I wanted to push this. Like, I'm not willing to say that Stephen A. and Skip Bayless are the cause of the downfall of Western society, but they're certainly in there, right? Like, I'm not sure if they're the symptom or the disease itself, but it all comes along with one, right?
On a parallel track.
This slide.
It's coincided with.
Yeah, like this slide of humanity from, rationalism and facts and information into shouting and idiocy is, like, they are a big part of that. And again, I'm not sure if they're a symptom or the actual illness itself, but the problem is they measure they measure virtue in terms of success and ratings and money, right? Stephen A., from his point of view, has better ratings and more money than anybody else has ever done this before. Therefore, he is the best at it. Therefore, this is virtuous and this is the good thing to do. Whereas everyone else looks at this and says, you have ruined the entire sports media landscape, and that's the cost of your money and your fame and your success. Like, this is not a good net win for everybody. This is a massive net negative that's just benefited you personally tremendously. And obviously Skip thinks similarly, right? Like, we revolutionize sports media. And they say, it was fun. Everyone had fun. People didn't have fun. People hate this. People watch this of two people just shouting at each other, and whatever about the original iteration of it, those two people doing it. But now, look what it's created. Like, look what it has fostered. And the level of discourse around everywhere is so much worse. But also, it's played into this whole world where the hatred is everywhere, right? Like, people have lost the ability, because debate television existed, people have lost the ability to have a discussion, right? Because no longer. Like, now all you're presented with is arguments. I shout something, you shout the opposite, and then whoever shouts loudest or has the pithiest soundbite wins, right? Which means if anyone has a contrary opinion, or if anybody thinks something different, or if anybody wants to put a different viewpoint across, the hate, they don't get met with a rational discussion. They get met with people screaming, you're an idiot, and hate, right? And that's how you end up with the last sort of 3 or 4 days that I had.
So you're blaming Stephen A. and Skip for
largely
the last couple days.
Seriously, like, I genuinely think that what they did to the sports media, like I said, I don't think that I'm not sure that they're single-handedly responsible for the entire downfall of Western society, right? Like, I don't think you can, the meme with the dominoes, right? Tiny domino and then giant big domino. I don't think you can say Skip Bayless versus Stephen A. at the bottom and, like, Donald Trump's America at the top. I think that's a little bit much. But I do think that they're, like, symptomatic of the way this whole world has gone. Like, they played into something that has turbocharged this downfall of rational discussion.
The one thing that's interesting there, and it's a challenge when we're in this space, to not look at the numbers as the measure for success. That's the KPI, so to speak, right? And so they did what anyone else would do, and it's like, well, the ratings are up, people are up, demand is up for me, keep going, right? And so what I do wonder is, as I backtrack a little bit, I do wonder, did they revolutionize? Well, they changed sports media, for sure. I wonder how much just being on ESPN to start gave them the leg up. Because I went back, I was down this rabbit hole a couple weeks ago of looking at old SportsCenter type stuff, watching Dan Patrick and Dan Patrick reminiscing. And so I was watching when Dan Patrick went back to ESPN like 6 or 7 years ago, having this same conversation with his guys, basically reflecting on how he was a part of the changing landscape of sports media, which was true. Him and Olbermann were unbelievable on the Sunday night SportsCenter. Like, it was much must-watch TV. And then and Chris Berman and Dan Patrick was sitting there paying homage to Berman and Steve Levy and the guy that some of the other guys that was Tom, I can't remember his name, he passed away, Tom Mees, who tragically died in a swimming pool accident. These people that like laid the groundwork, and I'm watching these videos of Dan Patrick reminiscing, and then it created stars, and we all consumed sports in a different way in the 80s and into the 90s and early 2000s because of SportsCenter. And like, that's real. Like, you go back and that was a real game changer for how sports were consumed. You didn't have to watch all the games or like hope that the national game was on once a week. You could see all the highlights, and they did it in an entertaining way. And now, because Skip didn't have a ton of success leaving ESPN, I wonder how much it was just like that was the next thing that was on, right? Like, Dan Patrick and Olbermann and Stu and all these guys built up the audience for Skip and Stephen A.
Right.
And then it turned into this like professional wrestling, cutting promos on each other, which, to your point, has now, I've heard, WCW former top guy Eric Bischoff talk about, like, look at cable news and what that's become. It's very much the same thing, right? It's just pick a side, scream at each other, and that's the show.
So we're in danger. Like, you and I are old enough that we're in that world of, boomers thinking everything was better in the past, right? But I don't think anybody views those old SportsCenter. Like, nobody's looking at old ESPN and current ESPN and thinking, man, we look at the progress. We've really improved this thing, right? It was garbage back in the day, and now we've got this wonder that is First Take, Nobody thinks that, right? Everybody looks at the old ESPN whenever it comes up and goes, man, the good old days, This isn't just us being boomers. This is like fairly unarguable that older was better here, right? So what Skip says is true. It was a revolution. They have absolutely revolutionized sports television, just in a bad way. Like, it's ruined it. They've destroyed the thing. They've taken what was the old institution, which, to be honest, was going to need to change at some point anyway, because, when a system built off highlights was going to change once everybody got the highlights on their phone, on social media, live, right? Like, you couldn't run 90s SportsCenter now because everyone's already seen everything that's going to take place, right? So something had to change. And apparently what they did was capitalize on that, get lucky, whatever. But, they jumped on that. They've turned it into something radically different. My contention is that the thing they've turned it into is dramatically worse than the thing that existed before. And what I think I heard somebody else talking about this before, but like, McAfee's interesting because he's obviously got this monster show. He's one of the 3 or 4 like biggest media entities out there, but is sort of steadfastly not a journalist, right? Like, has no journalistic background, has no journalistic knowledge. Like, he doesn't know anything about journalism. And so you've kind of blurred the lines now between these old journalistic institutions where everybody had come up through journalism training and understood the purpose of that. And one of the things you hear journalists say a lot is this responsibility to tell truth to power, right? They see themselves, journalists see themselves as like this fourth pillar of democracy, right? Where they're the thing that shines a light on negative things. McAfee doesn't do any of that anymore because he's not a journalist. So he has people on to talk, right? Because they do ratings, and there's zero. He's effectively a propaganda arm at that point, not deliberately, but because he just doesn't understand the role theoretically should be for that guy to push back and provide a counter argument to whoever's on there trying to use his show for propaganda. Journalists understand that and push back. McAfee doesn't, so he just has a conversation with them.
I would argue that line's been blurred too by journalists as well.
It has, absolutely. But at least
they're biased.
But the point is, of course, but at least they understand theoretically the purpose, right?
But I don't think there's any difference.
No, there is, because there's one thing to understand it and then decide when to break the line or when to break the rule occasionally. It's another thing to never even be aware that that's a thing. Like, you become so much easier to be used. The point is that journalists used to be driven as a target by something other than ratings and money, right? Now, everything is driven by ratings and money, which is another consequence of this Stephen A. Skip Bayless dynamic, where all you're doing is chasing the biggest ratings, and you believe that that's the purpose of this. The purpose with a lot of old school journalism, most of which is now basically dead, was never ratings and money in the first place. So something has been lost along this pathway in the pivot to ratings and money. And that is a big part of the Skip Bayless and Stephen A. thing as well.
Not to go too far, I mean, the whole thing's going to be off the rails, but I thought the 2000s, I remember I used to love watching Sunday Night Baseball. And Sunday Night Baseball, just like Sunday Night Football, it's like the weekly baseball game. There was a point in the 2000s, like when I was a kid, when I was a kid, things were better. When I was a kid, small market teams played on Sunday Night Baseball. It's like, I've never get to see the Pirates. Pirates are on this week. Never get to see the Brewers. They're on this week. There was a point where it became all Red Sox, Yankees, Dodgers.
Right.
Sunday night.
Because that's what drives the ratings.
Because there was, not that ratings and money have always mattered, but I do believe about 20 years ago, things changed a little bit more where it's like, we can't have a bad rating.
Right.
We can't risk putting the Pirates on Sunday Night Baseball. It has every Red Sox Yankees game has to be there, so it just gets oversaturated with it does a bigger number.
There was always a blend,
and I think that took off more 20 years ago, and then it was TV. It's crept into news, cable news. It's crept into everything.
Yeah, there used to be a blend, and it was like
you have to balance it.
There was some lowest common denominator stuff that would finance effectively the stuff that journalists and other people wanted to do. And then you're right, somewhere along the way, everything gets co-opted by CEOs and, finance officers and the money people. And it's like, well, why are we leaving this money on the table? Why not talk about the Dallas Cowboys every segment?
I mean,
because they're not in the Super Bowl, Jim. Doesn't matter. Talk about the Cowboys. That's what makes the ratings.
Literally. So just to get into the mind of where that comes from. When we were at PFF in the early days, not knowing anything about media, we just kind of stumbled into doing a podcast in 2012, but we'd have these conversations with Chris in the early days, and he would, listen to our show and say, "Well, you gotta lead with the Cowboys." It's not exactly that, but when we were on that draft show, which is 10 years ago now, we were on the draft show. It's like, can we do? We got to do a Cowboy segment. This was Chris suggesting to the producers. We had 1 hour on NBC Sports cable channel at the time. We were doing the PFF draft show. We had just gotten this new data that we were going to show off to the world. And Chris says, we have to have a Cowboys segment. And I don't remember exactly, but they're picking like 28th or whatever it was. And it's like, what? Why? Because that's what he's been trained in. I'm going to do 3 Cowboys games a year, and this is all that anybody cares about. And he was telling us, hey, we got to talk Cowboys. And then he'd listen to our podcast and say, why'd you talk about the Panthers for 20 minutes? Why'd you talk about the Browns? You got to talk about the Cowboys. You got to talk about the Eagles, because that's what people know in media now.
So this is what I'm saying. I don't think you can say that Stephen A. and Skip are entirely responsible for this downfall, but they're all part of this descending spiral where it's just become everything, all the guardrails that stopped this happening in the past have been dumped. And now it's all Shouty. It's all Cowboys, it's all the 3 things that move the needle in terms of ratings. And it's just so now, what used to be a kind of wide variety and tapestry of sports discussion and stories is just shouting about 3 things. That's it. That's now the landscape. We've reduced actual nuance to just shouting at each other, and we've reduced the number of topics we're talking about to the 3 things that get ratings. So we've gone from this wide picture of everything that could be on to there's now 3 topics and it's just shouting.
I mentioned this before. I feel like the other tipping point was the Brett Favre retirement saga. a lot of this is anecdotal. That was the first time I remember a story getting beaten into the ground. At the top, that was when I was still watching SportsCenter, like the 06, 07, 08 drama. Is he coming back? Is he not? We're sending a special reporter out there just to follow Favre and, whatever it was. That led SportsCenter every night. And then they'd go back to it, like every 10 minutes into it. It's like Favre update. This is what we talked about, top of the hour. They just kept going back to it. And then eventually it became Tebow, and then it became, Brady and LeBron and Cowboys and the whole thing, as producer Will says. The Fox Sports mandate was Tom Brady, LeBron, and the Cowboys every day. What does this mean for Dak Prescott's legacy? I don't know. It's week 5.
Yeah,
they're
nothing.
3-1. He'll be okay. Man. But someone's watching.
A lot of people.
Is the problem. A lot of people are watching, and that's going to influence things. And look, we're not immune to chasing numbers, right? We do a mock draft every Monday, right? That's maybe we're ruining sports. We're doing a mock draft every Monday because more people watch it.
That's the thing.
We have to balance some of the low-hanging fruit. If people are into that versus we can't just do long-form Shouty Shows every week because fewer people watch it. So we have to balance that as well.
It's extremely hard to swim against this tide because it is where the money it is where the money is. It is where the people are. So you have to treat it, I think, the way we were talking about old school journalism theoretically treating it, which is, look, there's some stuff you have to do because that's where the money and the people are, and then that gives you the ability and the freedom and the capacity to do the other stuff that not many people are going to watch, right? So we do shows all the time where it's like, this isn't going to do numbers, but I think it's an interesting conversation or an interesting topic or an interesting thing. But you also have to, if you're going to do one of those, you need to have a mock draft in there somewhere because that's what people are going to watch.
And by the way, the mock draft, I enjoy it because I feel like we do it differently and talk through things differently or whatever. I mean, but we got to go where what the people want as well.
All right, next one.
You done with that one? Mm-hmm. Got no more use for Stephen A. and Skip. All right, let's see what else the media had to say this week.
There's some voter out there who voted for Justin Herbert.
Yeah, when did Justin Herbert's mom get a vote?
And by the way,
even Justin Herbert doesn't think Justin Herbert was an MVP. Who was this?
Now, what do you got to take that vote? And by the way, this guy last year, I read, was the only one who didn't vote for Jaden Daniels for Rookie of the Year. So this guy thinks he's smarter, or he wants to make.
These are the same guys that voted Bill Belichick not into the Hall of Fame. That's why there needs to be.
Right.
Needs to be more accountability for who's voting for who.
At some point, don't you take the vote away? Let's say you're a movie critic and you said, I thought Saving Private Ryan sucked. You can't critique movies anymore.
Any good points there, Sam? This is
well, first of all, I'm not the same people.
This is your time to shine here.
First of all, I'm not the same people that voted for Bill Belichick in the Hall of Fame one way or the other. I'm an AP voter, not a Hall of Fame voter. Different group of 50 people. The fact that it is 50 people is a little bit confusing. I think you would assume it's the same 50, but it's a different group of 50, different thing entirely. The accountability line is pretty funny. A couple of reasons. I won't go into one of them, but the other one, I saw a lot of people saying this, where's the accountability? It's like, I put the vote out. What accountability are you looking for exactly? I put the vote out, I explained my reasoning on Twitter. That's as accountable as I can be for it, right?
I can only imagine they never connected the dots of your football history, coming from analytics nerd site. Had they, in that discussion, connected those dots, I think Gruden would have
lost his mind even more.
You're telling me it's but
by the way,
nerds?
This is part of the thing, right? When they changed the panel up a lot a few years ago, they did it specifically with the viewpoint to getting in as many diverse viewpoints as possible and adding some people to the panel that weren't just the same old crusty people that had locked into idiot groupthink and we're like, who's got the most touchdowns? That's the MVP, right? The whole point was, let's freshen up the panel. Let's bring in some people that have come from different pathways. And I was sort of the representative, effectively, from PFF, from that type of world. So we've always seen the game a little bit differently to most people because we come at it from a completely different angle. we've come through a system of analytics, and this is really like the first generation of people that have had that, right? That have pioneered this way of doing things. So, of course, we're going to see the game differently from, like, for example, Kurt Warner, right? Who we've said before sees the game very much through the prism of, I played the game this way. I was a, prototypical pocket passer. That's what I want to look for in the game. So, yeah, like, we're obviously going to see the game differently. Look, again, the logic has been fairly consistent. I don't think it's particularly controversial at all to say that Brock Bowers, a first-team All-Pro tight end who broke, records that had stood since the 60s in his rookie season, in an award that doesn't have any value attached to it, right? It is the most outstanding rookie, not the best or most valuable rookie, rather. I don't think it's controversial at all to say that guy was Rookie of the Year, even relative to an exceptionally performing rookie quarterback. Other people, apparently 49 of them, felt differently.
Linking those two was absurd.
That's not absurd. It makes sense, but I don't think they're the same.
No, I just think that was a perfectly fine vote last year.
Right.
This one, again, I disagree with far more. And if you're going to, but like saying, well, he did this last year and he did this year, and connecting those two, I think is ridiculous.
Yeah, again, I don't think it's ridiculous because they stand out as two.
Yeah, you've been on an island.
Right, as
twice.
Two lone wolf votes. But it's
funny, though, because one, you thought you might be on an island,
right,
which was fine. And
That's
the other
the
one, you said definitely not. Like, I definitely didn't think Bowers would be the only.
Yes. I expected to be the only person that voted Justin Herbert as MVP this year. And look, if you listen to the show, you wouldn't be surprised by that. We've been talking about it all season long. I genuinely think there's absolutely a case to be made that Justin Herbert was MVP. The offensive line performance that Drake May dealt with in the Super Bowl was basically a good day at the office for the Chargers offensive line this season, right? So that's the baseline Justin Herbert has been working with this season, and he has played spectacularly well if you actually watch the games. Now, that's only translated to like a middling production standpoint, right? The Chargers offensive line, Justin Herbert stats, whatever you like, it's middle of the pack somewhere. But middle of the pack, given that, like Drake May was barely functional in that game, right? So imagine if he had that for like 17 straight games or 16 straight games. For him to come out of that as a middle of the pack production quarterback is insane. So I absolutely think there's justification for him to be the MVP. But as you said, I was amazed that I was the only person that thought Brock Bowers was Rookie of the Year. I know at least two other AP voters that were like 50-50 coin flip on it and ended up going Daniels. But the idea that was as controversial or as minority in opinion as it was, I think it was kind of crazy.
And of course, Portnoy's pissed off because Patriots fan, and
yeah, of course
he helped you go viral that Thursday night with your response by quote dunking. A lot of quote dunks the other day on you, which is another new phenomenon in the last decade or so. All right, let's see what else Barstool has to say here.
But anyway, Allen voters got lucky in the sense that, like, there's an investigation for the crime, and the Allen voters stole $100, but the Herbert guy stole the bank.
It kind of all worked out fairly because I think Stafford is barely a better MVP than May, and I'm glad Allen got some attention for his season, which is an MVP level season. The Herbert thing I can't excuse.
I agree with the first point that I took a lot of heat off the Josh Allen voters. Renner pointed this out on a tweet, right? That the Allen votes to him were a lot worse than the Justin Herbert vote, and they almost seemed spiteful against Drake May. Like he couldn't see any justification effectively for Josh Allen as MVP, and for him to get 2 votes didn't get an awful lot of attention. Now, again, I agree with Renner, but then I would as a Justin Herbert voter. I think the Justin Herbert vote was better than the Josh Allen votes based off the criteria. And I think they should take more flack. On the other hand, given the flack I took, I keep quiet. Again, I said it before. They shouldn't put their vote out.
2 Josh Allen voters. And again, your vote would not have changed the outcome. It would have bumped him up several points.
Because the vote was 24 first-place votes to Stafford, 23 to Drake May, it looked like my vote was effectively the difference between the two, and had I voted for Drake May, he would have won MVP. Now, number one, I had Stafford second anyway, so even if you just delete my Herbert vote, that doesn't happen. Number two, the margin of victory is more than my one vote anyway, so even if I had completely changed my opinion and voted Drake May first, it wouldn't have done that.
Right, because plus those guys would have been second, third, or they would have had the points aren't as clear. What is first place give you 5 points or whatever it is?
I think it's 10, but the second place vote would have made it. So
unless
unless my vote was Drake May 1 and Stafford like 8, it wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, so the Allen thing was, just as
but the other thing,
but
this is the thing again, right? It's like you can't on the one hand call for transparency, like the witch hunt that took place on the Hall of Fame thing with the Bill Belichick. There were like 3 or 4 people out there with a running spreadsheet trying to track people that had said yes, that they'd voted for Belichick, and people that had said no. What was the outcome? Like, if you'd identified the 3 people or whatever, 10 people, if you'd identified the 10 people that said no, right? What was the plan? Were we going to dox them and get their phone numbers and put that, you know what I mean? You can, on the one hand, call for transparency, and then an accountability is the word that everyone's throwing around. I want them to be accountable, but then dox them when you get you know what I mean? We need to accountability. If you want someone to stand up and say, I voted for this guy and here was my reasoning and let's talk it out, that's fine. But if your accountability is, I'm going to send, threats to these people.
Yeah, but you're now cross comparing different people. It's not like Portnoy's not out there and
I'm saying
they're not doxing you. There's some idiots that are doing that.
Correct, but they know that.
But it's on the
You're
back.
telling me that Portnoy with his history does not understand what he does when he weaponizes his legion of people towards a target.
To me, that's as big of a problem as anything, and we're all guilty. I call it the quote dunks, the quote dunk society. Remember the woman a couple of years ago who got fired? She was in the transatlantic flight or something. She said she had some sort of tweet that went viral, got misconstrued, and she was fired by the time she landed.
Right.
It was like, what's going on? And then finally, it didn't even get resolved. I think she was just fired. But it's like people like to pounce. They like to pounce on that stuff.
My point is...
And then other people go to the absolute extreme, and before you know it, your address and phone number are out there.
Right. But I've been I've been accused of doing this deliberately, and of course I should, all these people saying, you got exactly what you deserve because of course you knew that when you put this out there, when you went running to Twitter to get your publicity, well, of course people would dox you. It's like, well, okay, number one, I may be the last human alive, naive and stupid enough to not have assumed that was the logical outcome of a disagreement over a football vote. But number two, if that's the case, then every single person calling for accountability has to shut the hell up. And every single person being like, let's go find these people. Well, you can't do that either because what happens, the outcome of that apparently is doxing, right? And threats. So if we all accept that as the reality of the modern world, then you can't ever call for transparency and accountability because as soon as you do that, somebody's getting doxed and threatened. So you can't have those things both ways. We need to either address this issue, which is people have lost the ability to have a rational conversation, or you can't call for accountability and transparency and a rational debate because it's not possible anymore.
Well, Sam, we have at least one person that has defended your right to vote.
Yes.
Let's hear
the
from
right to vote.
I don't care. The fact that there's such an uproar right now from, I guess, football purists or writers out there that don't have a vote or do have a vote that voted for either Drake May or Matt Stafford, who are like, those 3 guys, the 2 guys that voted for Allen, the 1 guy that voted for Herbert, how dare you vote for those guys? You should lose your voting rights. You shouldn't be allowed to vote. Because here's the reality, Tyrone. If you want to appoint an MVP, then just go ahead and appoint him. If you want to put it up for a vote, then you have to allow people to vote the way their conscience tells them to vote. I'm with you. The fact that a guy voted for Justin Herbert doesn't make sense. The fact that someone this particular year, or 2 guys, would vote for Josh Allen doesn't make sense. But at the end of the day, I don't care. And if you're given the right to vote and you're willing to tell people who you voted for, like the guy that voted for Herbert did, then everybody else can go pound sand. Because if you want to just appoint the guy that you want to be MVP, then let's just do it that way and take the democratic process out of it. Nobody gets to vote, and 3 guys go in a room, get stoned and say, he's the MVP, he's the defensive player of the year, he's the blah, 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 blah.
Be curious
and
what
that's
that
what
process
troubles me about this. It's that because there are some people out there.
All right, that's Craig Carton. We will cut it.
I'm kind of disturbed by how much I agree with Craig Carton on this particular. I almost agree with everything he said there. That's kind of frightening.
That he thinks that the vote was way off, but you have the right to do it.
So I think he's right that, look, if we wanted to just, it's really easy to come up with like groupthink, right? It's very easy to just say, this is the consensus, not the consensus, this is the majority opinion on this topic in pretty much any given year, right? And then we just appoint that guy. That would be really easy. We don't need a panel of 50 people to do that, right? We can just have one guy to basically survey social media. You could do that with AI now. Who's the most likely X? Done. That's the guy. Or we come up with an agreed upon, here's what we're looking for, right? Touchdown interception ratio, whatever your number, EPA per play. Pick your favorite nerd stat. That's what we're going to rock with. That's the MVP in this given year. But number one, that's not the way it works most years. Like there's a lot of years where, most of the years, those guys are like the same thing. But there's some years where it isn't, and most people are kind of in agreement there as well. So that would be wrong. But number two, that's the whole purpose of this, is to give it to 50 people. And sometimes the minority opinion is important. I'm not saying this is one of those cases, but there's a reason that the Supreme Court, that they write dissents, right? We have an opinion, we have a majority opinion, somebody writes a majority opinion, and that's the law, right? That won. Whatever the vote is, the Supreme Court votes, that opinion is now the law. But some guy writes a dissenting opinion, says, I disagree with this is my reasoning. And that, I mean, effectively at the time it's irrelevant, but later on, someone digs that up and uses that as an argument to argue basically the reverse. And they end up like reversing the law down the road or changing the law slightly based off the dissenting opinion. We've already said the Brock Bowers thing, I think, is already aging better after a year than it looked last season, right? Last season, everyone was doing the same thing. The one idiot, you cost him his unanimous vote, yada, yada. Most of the feedback I got on Twitter this time around was Brock Bowers is a perfectly good vote. Like, or after a year, it's already aging well.
Yeah.
So I think there's value in having, forget my opinion, there's value in whoever the dissenting opinions are saying, you know what, actually, I think this thing is the same instead. It's too easy to get locked into groupthink. There's value in somebody presenting an alternative opinion as long as people are actually willing to engage with it. That's the problem, is that people aren't willing to engage with it most of the time.
Yeah. You got engaged with quite a bit.
That's not engaging with the opinion. Just showing up into your Twitter, calling you an idiot or, that's not engaging with the opinion. Like, how many people have actually, the closest you've got to engagement is saying, I think your vote is wrong. I think Justin Herbert is not MVP, or I think it's a dumb opinion to vote Justin Herbert MVP. How many people have actually engaged with the argument?
The problem with the MVP thing, it's a lot like when people put power rankings out and it's just sorted by record for the most part.
Yes.
And and then the analytics nerds will be like, hey, I know the Chiefs are like 8-6, but I've got them third because here's why. Here's what the data says, blah, blah, blah. Right or wrong, there's a reasoning behind it. The problem with the MVP is the same thing that we, hate against every single week, which is like, all right, here's this primetime game, and we see it as this horse race, and then everybody talks about it, and as soon as Stafford throws a no-look touchdown, it's like MVP, there it is. And then Drake May throws a great touchdown, he's MVP, and we just talk about it, and then it becomes groupthink, and it becomes the expectation. This guy's going to be MVP, or it's a two-horse race. This is what everybody said. This is where all the discourse is. As you said, like if AI searched, who do you think's MVP? It would come up with Stafford and May because everybody said it. So that if you do have the dissenting opinion, nobody's going to.
The point is, right?
Look at that.
It came to the result everyone wanted, right? Most people are now, after the Super Bowl, convinced that the MVP, the correct quote-unquote MVP of the season was Matthew Stafford. This system produced Matthew Stafford as the MVP. right? Like this is the East German judge who had a different, score to everybody else. It gets lopped off, but the East German judge's score didn't go to Drake May. So it worked. Like the system worked that everyone's complaining about. But my point is,
the East German judge.
Yes, the closest we've come to engaging on the actual discussion, right? To talking through why Justin Herbert does or does not deserve MVP is the three people that have done this. You, me, and Renner, right? The three people that have actually engaged on the topic to any substantive degree that I've seen have all come from this show.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's the issue.
I've seen some other analytically minded football people say, appreciate your argument, disagree. Appreciate your argument,
but that's
disagree.
Not engaging on it. That's acknowledging
I saw other
it
people
exists.
say, hey, he didn't have enough production. We saw the O-line thing too, but it's still not enough. They had a great defense. I saw other people engage.
That's engaging on it. But simply saying, I appreciate your argument, but I disagree is not engaging on the argument. That's acknowledging an argument exists. It's not the same thing.
What else do we have here?
The AFC West was in the Super Bowl, and people are like, you know what? I'm rocking with Herbert for 2 votes. I just feel like that would be nuts.
Yeah,
and doesn't have a statistical case. The Herbert thing, I think we all agree. Everyone except for Sam Monson and Danny. And listen, I have known Sam for, God, I'm old, 16 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I text with Sam.
I like Sam.
I think they do a great podcast. Check the mic, and he is not only is he not a hot take guy. Most of our text exchange is him making fun of me for my hot takes and me going back at him. I think this is flat wrong. I think that the Herbert thing, the argument all year, to my ear was Herbert is not the most valuable person on his own team. It's Joe Alt. Because if Justin Herbert were out all year, Joe Alt can still be awesome. But Joe Alt's out, and Herbert, it's like now we're grading him on a curve. So that I flatly disagree with.
Timo's the one that actually engaged with and defended you the best with a stat, by the way. It was like Herbert's EPA with Joe Alt through 5 or 6 weeks was league leading, or among the league leaders. And since that point,
I've seen that a little bit. And people have used it for this argument, right, to say that Joe Alt is the real MVP. My disagreement with that is that I think like Joe Alt on his own just shows you what this offensive line would look like if it was functional, right? And you produce a simply functional offensive line, and Justin Herbert looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You take Drake May's offensive line, Matthew Stafford's offensive line, and you chop a player or two off it in terms of making them the caliber of the Chargers offensive line. Like we make it 20%, 40% as bad as the Chargers offensive line. Suddenly those guys fall apart or turn into complete turnover machines. I would argue that, Joe Alt is incredibly valuable, but only because he is what enables Justin Herbert to have a functional offensive line in front of him, and that's the real value.
And by the way, Timo brought that up. I don't think he was even saying Sam's justified, that's why. But it's an interesting data point.
Right.
The problem with data points, as someone in the chat is mentioning too, you can't just take one. Especially you can't be like, well, Herbert in a 6-game sample was this, and then Alt's got hurt, and now he's that. Therefore he's MVP. I wouldn't the next step isn't then therefore he's obviously MVP. Because that's a whole different criteria. But if you're saying, hey, why was his production down? Why did this happen? Why did these games happen? You could say, okay, that's part of the offensive line thing. This is like if you're a Mahomes guy and you're like, well, Mahomes has been great until his offensive line fell apart in 2 Super Bowls. That's the same argument, right? People are like, why did they get beat up by the Bucs and the Eagles in the 2 Super Bowls? Everybody blames the offensive line for that. Then it's like, how much do you blame the offensive line for that and everything? So,
well, that's my point. Is that I'm not even at this point. I'm not trying to get people to agree with me. Right? I don't think I ever had that particular goal in mind. My goal is things like that. It's like, look, if you actually engage in the argument and you actually play it out and discuss it and debate it, you can construct the argument, even when it's not me doing it. People like Timo. They're showing you that there is an argument to be made, that if you simply, it's not a hypothetical, as people are saying. The point is Justin Herbert was playing at that level when things were viable, right? And then as soon as things become unviable, he's still winning games. He's still playing exceptionally well.
It's a good argument to say,
the
hey,
production
this
isn't
as
there.
wild as it seems.
Like that, giving him Joe Alt back bridges the gap between how Justin Herbert is playing and the level of production that people associate with an MVP, right? So that's the real debate. That's the real problem with this, right? There's a level of production that people associate with MVPs, and that's here, right? And Justin Herbert's down here somewhere. I would argue that his value and his level of play is up here, and bridging that gap is giving him Joe Alt back. It's giving him a couple of guys in front of him that can keep him upright.
So Nick disagrees, but
agreed.
Shout out for Check the Mic, because that's why we did it, for the engagement. That's complete sarcasm.
You, of all people, can't be throwing around jokes like that. People don't understand your jokes. They don't know you're joking.
Like, nobody thinks about, again, this was like the argument where people said, people accused PFF of like getting paid off by agents.
Right.
I was like, take that logic.
Look.
One step further, and you'll realize that's an absurd accusation or even business plan.
Here's the thing.
So I would say the business plan of you tweeting out Justin Herbert was my MVP
Right, the
pick
number of people have said
as a way to like get ahead and, move the podcast forward. Not a good business plan. I would recommend not doing that.
The number of people that have said they're unsubscribing or not listening anymore is, it's quite a lot. So if that's your reasoning, he did it for the clicks, that's not great. Number two, if you could say, okay, maybe 1 year you wouldn't know the kind of level of abuse this would bring down, right? And whether it was worth it or not. But everyone's pointing out this is the second year this has happened, right? You think maybe if I'd done it last year for the clicks and the engagement, would I be doing it again based off what happened? No. I'm not doing this because it's fun.
Wait till next year. You're going to really have to sanity check all the picks so this doesn't happen again. Let's see what Danny Parkins has to say with Nick.
You got a lot of texts accusing you of being the Herbert voter.
I mean, listen, everyone knows, I've always said it, Sam Monson knows ball.
Yeah.
What's
he
funny
must have owed you something.
Sam Monson used to do a weekly segment on my radio show
Sam
for
is great.
years.
I like Sam.
Yeah.
So I've known Sam for forever. Shout out to him. And yes, it was funny. I was watching a movie with my wife last night, so I was off the phone until this morning and woke up to 11 text messages from 11 different people going, I didn't know you got a Hall of Fame, MVP vote. So I appreciate all of the belief. And even I would not have gone that far.
Thank you.
Listen, I said it on the show that I would have voted for Drake May for MVP. You and I disagreed about it, and partly because of value, and I would have put Herbert third. I would have gone May 1, Stafford 2, Herbert 3, and the value and 11 wins with the worst offensive line and the numbers under pressure. I do think Herbert is a superstar, was spectacular this season.
You thought he was spectacular this season?
I did.
Final 7 weeks of the year, he had 7 touchdowns.
Yeah.
They
circumstances, man. Winning games
but
and
he's
overcoming
not the
adversity.
only player that dealt with injury and a banged up offensive line.
He had the worst one.
Okay, but other guys were close.
And all the other guys that were close missed the playoffs.
Yeah, so that last argument I think that's a really important point that I disagree a lot with. People are like, oh, other guys had, weak offensive lines or other guys had problems on their offensive line. I don't think people that say that appreciate just how wretched this Chargers offensive line was. I think that's really missing the boat on how bad it was. Other people dealt with the occasional injury or some, substandard offensive lines. People did not have this Chargers offensive line. Herbert.
If I was to defend you and make a case, if I could get...
You've been steadfastly avoiding doing, I've noticed.
I don't think he was the top MVP, but if you did a percentage of his team's WAR or something, so if you trusted a WAR metric, in the negative... Because we're talking about below replacement level offensive line.
Right.
Replacement level is like the guy you get off the street. That's how nerds describe it. They literally pulled Bobby Hart off the street and said, hey, go play left tackle.
Bobby Hart.
Go play right tackle. Go play left tackle. Hadn't played in a couple of years.
And was awful when he had played.
Right. So literally had a replacement level offensive line. And they had probably such negative WAR. I bet if you went back, because Stafford had Puka and May had pretty good pass catchers. And by the way, May's offensive line did perform well this year, despite
mostly
recency bias of what we saw. They weren't bad. But that's the other part. Like when it comes to arguments, someone might say, well, you think Herbert's offensive line was bad. Well, May had 2 rookies.
Yeah.
And so, like, 2 rookies is just this vague concept, whereas it's just like, does that mean that they're bad? Is it just because they're young? Because Will Campbell played fine for most of the year. Jared Wilson was a little hit or miss. But the offensive line, I think, overall was pretty good for New England, certainly compared to last year. We were using the same logic, by the way, that you're using for Herbert's MVP vote was the same logic we used to describe Drake May's rookie season, where we said, hey, he looked pretty good.
Yeah.
No, there's no data point that shows it.
Right.
There's no stat that shows Drake May had a pretty good season and we're optimistic about his year 2, other than his situation was so bad and he didn't crumble. Like, similar logic got us to Drake May being better in year 2 and having a chance to succeed. Now, maybe not be number 2 in the MVP race. We weren't necessarily predicting that. But again, the same logic got you close. Anyway, there's a difference. This is why, like, all the arguments that I see there's a difference between, like, a vague, well, he had 2 rookies and he had these types of people around him versus Herbert, who we could say, well, he had people off the street. Fine, but the people off the street, maybe they played well. Well, they didn't, right? You could actually go look at it and say they did not block anybody. That's the difference.
You can tell right away, I think, the people that actually watched the games, because there's a lot of people make that argument that, Drake May's supporting cast is terrible. It's like, no, it's pretty bad on paper, but actually it wasn't that bad during the season. Like, if you look at his offensive line, or they say, going into the season, we thought, yeah, but then a season happened. Like, you know what I mean? You can't like work on the basis of on paper going into the season, this is what we thought about this group. You have to actually watch how they played and decide whether it's true or not.
If Drake May had come out and he had the fastest time to throw and he had lightning quick decision making and the offensive line had poor names on paper, then you would make the argument, well, he elevated, he dragged Will Campbell and Jared Wilson and the great Morgan Moses and Garrett Bradbury. He dragged those guys, but he protected them with this quick passing game. It wasn't necessarily the case, though. They actually held up. They were pretty good overall. He also took more sacks than he should have that weren't on the offensive line, and they were fine, right? So preseason perception and then actually what happened was different. Mm-hmm. Whereas the Chargers were supposed to have a decent offensive line.
Sure.
Like, if you said on paper they're going to have Alt and Slater before Slater got hurt, they're going to have Mekhi Becton coming off of his best season. Maybe he regresses leaving the Eagles, but he's still not bad. 3/5 you're feeling pretty good about, but they all were awful and hurt. And that was the reality.
Mm-hmm.
All right, do you want to see the medley of tweets?
The medley of tweets, sure, just because I don't know what that is.
Let's check out this medley of tweets.
I could show a hell of a medley of tweets.
The people.
Drake May, 23. Yeah, these are the ones after the game.
Oh, this is funny. Oregon Homer, 23 Drake May voters cost Justin Herbert an MVP. That's good.
There were some good tweets after the Super Bowl.
That's pretty funny.
What else we got?
I like that. Calling Drake May the schedule is some of the best slander I've heard in a minute.
That's pretty good. For everyone feeling bad that Drake May, imagine 5 Will Campbells on an offensive line. That's Justin Herbert's Chargers.
So this is all post-Super Bowl defending your not just your right to vote, but maybe your logic behind it as well.
There's something to that. Like, I honestly think that Patriots offensive line got its ass handed to it in the Super Bowl, and that was like a standard day at the office for Justin Herbert and the Chargers this year. So, like, that's the point I'm making, that what Drake May was dealing with in that game is Justin Herbert's standard Sunday, and yet he played
Monday night against the Eagles,
and yet he played a lot better than Drake May did in that Super Bowl. That's my point.
That's pretty funny. Do we get any others? Is that it?
Medley.
We had four more Shouty shows that are not about you that we have to touch on. We're resetting after not having our long-term Wednesday show here.
Yeah. Oh, there's so much content involved in this, whether it's Shouty shows, whether it's tweets, you could go on forever. And yet, I assume at some point people get sick of that quite quickly.
How much more in the medleys here?
How many tweets are in a medley? Oh, more.
Don't trust the opinion of anyone who thought Drake May deserved the MVP over Stafford.
I didn't realize, by the way, how far apart they were in PFF grade, which was interesting to me. Everyone,
Stafford was way higher.
Yeah, way higher. Like 10 plus grading points higher, something like that.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was true.
By the way, the other hindsight, this is real hindsight analysis. Did you see Julian Love mic'd up?
Yeah.
And so Julian Love is sitting on routes, and he's got a tell on Drake May, and he's like, he tilts his shoulder on the deep ball, he doesn't disguise it, what have you. And he says, somewhere along the way, he's like, not like Stafford. Stafford doesn't have that. So Julian Love, who eventually got...
Well, Stafford and his no looks, you can't tell where he's passing ever.
But he's basically saying, I've got to read, he's a young kid, he's 23, I got to read on this quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, not like Stafford, right? And Stafford's the one guy that picked apart the Seahawks defense twice, Thursday Night Football and then in the NFC Championship. There's Julian Love. I don't know if we have the audio for it, but he was sitting on a route, almost had a pick, and they're talking about it. I'm just going to stay patient. He's going to throw me one.
Closed captions.
Yeah.
Classic young quarterback.
And he's showing how he's got to tell. You can read
he's going to where he
as
wants, but he's pausing for a second to confirm that he's open. He's not blindly doing like Stafford. There's like a little hitch there. Okay. You can jump that.
So I just thought that was interesting. It's not like you go back and say, well, Stafford doesn't have a hitch in his motion, therefore he's MVP. But you just saw how the Seahawks were able to take advantage of a young quarterback, which they were unable to do against Stafford. Stafford's the one QB. Like, who had success against the Seahawks defense this year? Stafford twice and Baker in the Bucs. When Mike McDonald said he was just embarrassed by his team's performance, but Baker and the Bucs were balling that day, absolutely balling. So I thought that was interesting as well. We've got one more Shouty show. We'll just do one more today.
Okay.
Or do you want to let's just do the rest? What else are we going to do? Let's go through them.
How many more are there?
4.
God.
Let's just do it. What else?
November before Thanksgiving in 2017, and I walked in there in the off season and did an hour show with the freaking high heat, sick as a freaking dog, and then walked in here and did a monologue, and I said, I can't take it. I'm so sick I gotta leave. And I took the train home. And 3 days later, I was in the freaking Stanford hospital, and the doctor said, how the hell did you survive this? And then I sat there on a Tuesday night. He sat there and operated on me for 3 hours to get an appendix out. A ruptured one. Chris Russo. And Jared Jackson can't play in the fourth quarter in a game in February, making $50 million a year. I mean, this is absurd.
It's legendary stuff from Mad Dog.
I just don't understand how he doesn't blow a blood vessel doing that. Like, how?
This was legendary. This is in the Shouty Show Hall of Fame. It has all the elements, Sam. It has all the elements. You have the overpaid player opting out or load managing or whatever. You have the overpaid player who's dealing with something, right? You have the host comparing it to himself, saying, I did 1 hour show, high heat. Then I did my monologue, and I ruptured appendix.
Yeah.
Got appendicitis. I'm on my deathbed, playing through it. This is
fighting hurt.
Shouty Show Hall of Fame. Reminds me of my flu game.
Of course.
2024 NFL Draft. I played through it.
Yeah.
I had strep that had me laid out for 2 days.
The draft. You don't actually need to do anything in the draft, particularly if you're not going to get drafted.
2 years ago, the NFL Draft coverage.
Oh, you got roided up. I think a lot of people.
Steroids.
I don't think that's available to
got roided up midday and was ready to go.
I don't think the NBA people can do that.
But I played through it.
Yeah.
I wasn't load man. We went 7 hours live and then 2 hours live after that. Steroids helped.
I reference the West Wing a lot, but there's a scene in that where they start talking about like basically what stress and high blood pressure does to your body, and it just shreds every part of you. Mad Dog's like opting into that daily. How is he not, popped something already? Like a ventricle just.
He stayed at our hotel. He was staying at our hotel.
That's true. He is very chill outside of the shouting.
We saw him in and around the lobby, all over the place. Didn't talk to him.
Very relaxed.
We're bad in those situations. We could be way more bold. Be like, hey, thanks for the content. We missed opportunities.
Yeah.
But we saw him just, walking around, perfectly calm.
That's true. Maybe it's just a percentage thing. Like he's completely laid back and chill every moment he's not on a microphone, and that somehow evens out. It's like It's like a high intensity interval training.
He knows how to jack it up when
you only need to be like doing exercise for like 4 minutes as long as you do it hard enough. Maybe Mad Dog, it's like that's just 4 minutes and then he's out, and the rest of the day is just like 30 beat per minute resting heart rate. Maybe that's what it is.
That is Hall of Fame Shouty show though. Only Mad Dog.
It blows my mind that anyone can get. I can't imagine a world where you can do that to yourself on a daily basis.
Let's go back to Skip, who believes in the Raiders next year.
I'm looking quickly at the Raiders are second in cap space. And if they have Mendoza and Genty and Bowers and second most cap space, wow, I think they're going to make some noise next year. I do.
Oh,
me too. And the L.A. Chargers, speaking of Jim Harbaugh, have the fourth most cap space, and they got Mike McDaniel calling their plays and maybe trying to turn around Justin Herbert a little bit in his career and try to get him over the top. I think they're going to be really good and a threat. But if you ask me my Super Bowl teams, I'm just going to go gut feeling, like bolt out of the blue, so to speak. I'm going to go Bears-Bills.
You're right with the Bears.
If I'm going
my gut feeling,
okay.
I like the Bears.
I like
I'm
the
going
Bears.
Broncos.
This is why I will put this in. He's got the Bears in the Super Bowl. Skip.
Let's go to Skip Bayless, who believes in the Raiders next year, is just a phenomenal line.
You're dying laughing.
Given that they're
the
number one overall pick. I mean, that's peak Skip Bayless right there.
Kubiak, Mendoza.
I don't even need to hear the clip.
That's not a wild take.
That part's amazing.
It's not a wild take that they turn it around.
I mean, by that logic,
a 4-win Patriots team go to the Super Bowl. We had a
right, but by that logic, you can just pick any number one overall pick and team. They're getting a new quarterback. They're getting a new coach probably because most teams don't retain the coach that takes them to the number one overall pick. Therefore, they're going to be great next year.
Oh my gosh, this next one is Chris Canty, and I'll just say that the headline in our show notes here, the team that Russell Wilson built.
So this actually, I listened to this. Let's throw it on.
So what's the storyline we need to pay attention to more?
Russell Wilson took a Super Bowl away from the Seattle Seahawks when they played the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 49. He's going to give one back to them if Seattle wins Super Bowl 60. This team is the house that Russell Wilson built. The Russell Wilson trade, avoiding paying him the $245 million contract, getting multiple first-round picks, multiple second-round picks that turn into your starting left tackle, your best corner, and 2 key contributors in your defensive front seven. This is the team that Russell Wilson built. This is the championship that Russell Wilson built. And the irony of that is they're anchoring on a journeyman quarterback now in Sam Darnold, being able to have a renaissance year and get this team to the point where they can actually contend and win a championship. So that's the storyline to me that's not being talked about enough. The foundation of the Seattle Seahawks team, which was built off of the Russell Wilson trade.
I like that. The potential championship team that Russ built. That's a good one, CC.
This was a good example of, I saw the caption, and because it was attached to Chris Canty, I
thought it was going to be absurd.
I assumed that was 100% accurate, and that's exactly the argument that he was making.
Completely coherent.
Right, and because Chris Canty's done stuff, he's got some takes that would align perfectly with that, and I'm like, oh man, even for him, this is pretty rough. But I was like, no, I'm going to listen to the clip just to make sure he's actually as crazy as they're making it seem like he is. And that's a perfectly reasonable, nuanced take that actually is 100% accurate. Now, it's a little bit unclear how much credit he's giving Russell Wilson for that. I mean,
no, he's not.
Right, but it's ambiguous, right?
He's trying to say the Seahawks move to get rid
which
of
is
Russell
100%
Wilson
true.
Is what got them here.
It's absolutely true. Like this whole John Schneider credit pie that he's eating right now, like it kind of starts with the Russell Wilson thing. They decided now's the time to move on from him. You know, gone is the era of let Russ cook. Actually, we're going to ship him off now. We're going to cash in. We're going to avoid the contract. We're going to go in a different direction. And they made it work with Geno for a couple of years. That was really good. Now they pivoted away from Geno and gone to Darnold. But the starting point is getting rid of Russell Wilson and, you know, living through the job you have to do to shift on from a very good quarterback and find the next answer. And they did a great job of that. So this is a really good take that I think he was kind of done dirty by the caption.
He was. In our own document here.
On the tweet as well. The tweet was basically the same thing.
So really quick, I want to go. We have time. if you go back to the NFL, we've brought this up before, but in remember the 2021 game happens, the divisional round, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, it's the cyborg game, and everybody's like, you need one of these guys. You need one of them. It's the only way to win in the NFL. This is 2021. And then around 2022, we start hearing about Aaron Rodgers trade rumors. Remember, he was supposed to go to the Broncos. They were interested. Russell Wilson gets traded. Deshaun Watson gets traded. So in that time period, all three guys were acknowledged as top 8 type of quarterbacks, right? Even Rodgers on the descent a little bit, or coming off of MVP in 21 and descending in 22 and gets traded. Russell Wilson coming off of his best year in 2019 and 20, and then maybe declines a touch, but he's still seen as very good. And then Deshaun Watson, right? He's got all of the off-field issues, but you'd say, however, on the field, this guy was very, very good, right? Top 8 type of quarterback. And all three moves failed for the trading teams. Just an interesting time period in the NFL. The other thing that had just happened is Matthew Stafford got traded for in 2021, where the Rams said, Jared Goff's not good enough. We need to get better. We're going to go to Matthew Stafford. And it worked. It worked for a year. Mm-hmm. And so between the Stafford thing, the Allen Mahomes game, it was almost like this is QB or bust. You got to go high-end QB or bust. And 3 teams made that move, the Browns, the Broncos, the Jets. It did not work for any of them. And then ironically, the team that got the haul for Russell Wilson 3 years later is winning the Super Bowl with a not-so-perceived top 5 quarterback, top 8 quarterback, wherever you want to rank Sam Darnold, which I'm sure in our next clip, Ryan Clark and Dan Orlovsky are going to tell us where Sam Darnold should properly rank.
How many quarterbacks, now that Sam Darnold has won a Super Bowl, would you take over Sam Darnold?
In the NFC, how many quarterbacks I take? I take 8. I take Stafford, Hurts, Purdy, Mayfield, Love, Goff. They all win a Super Bowl with this Seattle Seahawks team right now. I take Williams. I take Daniels. Williams and Daniels, more upside than Sam Darnold. Listen, look, put the camera on me. All 8 of these quarterbacks, if the starting quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks, they win the Super Bowl. And most of these quarterbacks, if they're the starting quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks, they beat the New England Patriots worse than they won with Sam Darnold.
The only quarterback right now, that I would take over him is Stafford. Right now. What else does Sam Darnold have to do? He's 31-7 in the last 2 years. Look at what happened to Minnesota without him. If we don't look at anything Sam Darnold accomplishes, and we just look at what happened to Minnesota as Sam has left, they've fallen apart. You're telling me that you're taking, and I love him, Jared over him?
Yes.
Or do you sit there and say 6 in one hand, half dozen in the other?
I'm taking Jared Goff over Sam Darnold.
Baker?
Yes. Hell yeah, Baker Mayfield.
They're the same guy. They're the same players.
They're not the same players.
Wow. Everything about that was pretty wild. Number one, Ryan Clark listed 8 players that he would take over Sam Darnold, and none of them were like Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes.
Maybe that was 8.
Are they like included in?
I assume that's.
Because he was just naming, like, if you're going to name, okay, 8 players might be a reasonable place to start. I'm not sure it is. I haven't done the exercise, but I don't understand how you can name 8 and not have any of those guys. Is he like, I don't understand that.
Going back to the beginning of the show over an hour ago, this is all Skip and Stephen A's fault.
Yes.
The fact that you have to wake up on a Monday morning and you have to rank Sam Darnold. You have to rank him right now.
Right.
And then the argument is, would they have won by more points with another quarterback?
Right. Now look, but also, I mean, if he's not including those quarterbacks in his list, right? And there's no indication that he is based off that clip.
He is.
Then both sides of that argument are crazy, which again is a Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith thing.
I'm assuming the context is like the big 4 are off limits.
I mean, maybe. Anyway, if that's the case, then both sides of it are crazy, which again is a Stephen A. Skipification of the world. It's like, let's take not just 2 opposing arguments, but 2 extreme arguments that don't make any sense, and let's compare them. Now look, Dano, we're buddies now because he slid into my DMs. So I was like, keep your chin up. You know, this happens to the best of us.
That's nice of Dan.
So I like Dan more than I did a couple of days ago. But to say that the only quarterback you would take over Sam Darnold right now is Matthew Stafford is
Dan did this
straight up crazy.
He did that last year with Hurts, right? Didn't he? Before
Particularly,
he's like Jalen Hurts is the winner. Like whoever wins,
even if
it's like they have the world title. To be the man, you got to beat the man.
But then you can't have Stafford above him. Like that's
his buddy.
Even if Darnold had played like out of his mind good, been the MVP.
If you think you were Kermit sipping tea, victory lapping.
Okay, it's NFC quarterbacks apparently, so that's like
NFC quarterback. If you think you were Kermit sipping tea, victory lapping Sunday night and Monday morning, Dan was lapping you.
Oh yeah, he was.
Dan was lapping you. He's like, my MVP vote is completely justified.
Yeah,
and he's got the Seahawks A/B analysis that you don't have. You don't have Herbert ripping apart this Seahawks defense. He's got his MVP, his buddy Matthew Stafford, tore apart the Seahawks defense twice in the last month of the season, and so he was, he's paid to be right more than everyone else.
I'm paid to be right. Well, actually, okay, so this becomes more interesting now. If it's just NFC quarterbacks, given that how many of those ones are in the AFC at the moment, right? So now it's, would you take Sam Darnold over?
Definitely not Baker at this point.
Baker, Dak Prescott, Jordan Love.
I think Dak and Love have a case.
Hurts. Because I think it's a lot closer, actually, to
Purdy
Dano.
has a case.
So it's a lot closer to Dano than it is, I think, Ryan Clark, if you're limiting it to NFC quarterbacks.
Oh, this is going to be bad here. Like, Purdy has a case, again, because the whole point is, like, what if Darnold had to go up against the Seahawks defense? What if Purdy got to go up against the Niners defense, right? That's part of this whole thing.
But also, like,
what
would Darnold look like within that 49ers offense?
I'll just say, for Sam Darnold, we see this a lot. I am, in my old age, I believe QB wins are directionally getting you there over time. Not in a small sample size, not in a one-season sample. But if you are a QB, your QBs dictate wins more than any other position. We all agree on that in football. But if you're a QB win believer, this was your Super Bowl. You could say, look, Sam Darnold, 14-game winner in Minnesota, goes to Seattle, brings his 14 wins there, leads them to a Super Bowl across multiple systems. It wasn't like he was dragged. Did he have a great defense in Seattle? Absolutely. It's not like he didn't have 12 touchdowns and 8 picks or anything. He didn't have a Trent Dilfer stat line throughout the playoffs or throughout the regular season. Like, he had really good numbers, and you would make that argument, right?
I mean, I don't think you even need to reduce it to the wins. If you just say, okay, in the last 2 years total, if you just stacked up
He's been outstanding for over a 2-year period outside of a couple games.
If you just stacked up his stats and grades and stuff, what would it look like over the last 2 years? There's not going to be many people ahead of him at that point.
I agree.
So, I mean, like I said, I think it's a closer conversation because you're restricting it to the NFC and you're taking away most of the elite quarterbacks by doing that. It does make it a much more interesting conversation. Like, in the NFC, Stafford would have a better grade over 2 years. Purdy would probably have a better grade over 2 years. Jordan Love maybe, but then he'd be like next guy up. So it's pretty close to what Dano's saying.
He's played really well the last 2 years. But you're just talking about the NFC, so he's the king. And
right.
Besides Stafford. It's not too bad. That's it for Shouty Shows.
So soon?
You know how fast NFL game days move. One big play and everything changes. That's why live betting on FanDuel is a game changer. With FanDuel, you could bet in real time while the game unfolds. Score just flipped. You could jump on a new spread or a live money line. That wide receiver's heating up. You could bet the next touchdown score or total yards. Think that drive's going to stall in the red zone. We could take a live field goal prop or fade the total. Live player props, team totals, drive results, updated spreads, next play markets. It's all there. It's fast, it's fun, and with FanDuel, your live bets move as quickly as the game does. So whether you're riding momentum or fading the hype, FanDuel puts you right in the middle of every moment. You can visit FanDuel.com/33rd, download the app, bet the NFL live all season long. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in D.C., Kentucky, or Wyoming. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg-help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Paid endorsement. We're going to look at next year's NFL regular season MVP, the 2026 season. Early odds. We have Josh Allen plus 600, Lamar Jackson plus 750, all per FanDuel, of course. Drake May plus 850, Joe Burrow plus 1,000, Justin Herbert plus 1,100, Patrick Mahomes plus 1,100. I really hope Herbert wins it next year, just so you could just never wrong just early.
That would be pretty funny.
Joe Alt has a clean bill of health next year. You get the 3 receivers, see if Keenan's back and healthy and everything, but
I did see another source of odds that had Herbert with better odds than Drake May that was put out there.
I believe, the Patriots have, they're a prime regression candidate. We talked about the schedule all year, and I don't think it affected May's stats as much as it affects just the wins and losses.
Right.
And they're going to,
and
a much more difficult
And
schedule.
the Chargers are favored for the division for the first time in donkey's years. Like the Chiefs, it's the first time since Mahomes basically got there that the Chiefs are not favored for that division.
I wonder how much of that is just the uncertainty around Mahomes' week 1 availability, which I think we all assume he'll be around week 1.
I think it's more. Again, the Chargers had the worst offensive line in football, which shouldn't have been the case. Like they had 2 Pro Bowl, All-Pro caliber tackles that missed all and some of the season, respectively. Immediately, their biggest weakness should get significantly better by doing nothing, like just by having time to get healthy. So, and they won a ton of games already, so you would assume that they would get better, right?
Mahomes looks like pretty good value there, though. A little narrative coming off the injury could help a little bit.
He does kind of need a bounce-back season, though. When was the last time he actually played?
He's got Eric Bieniemy back, though.
That's true. It's going to help all the narrative.
Eric Bieniemy coming back. Josh Allen plus 600, though. He's the favorite over at FanDuel. Check it out. FanDuel.com/33rd. All right, it's Wednesday update time.
Now it's time for the Wednesday update, brought to you by the Cincinnati Bugler.
All right, so we're just going to go through a bunch of the head coaching and coordinator changes. We've touched on them a little bit, but with travel and the Super Bowl and games and all sorts of stuff going on, it is a massive game of musical chairs this offseason. Losing track of coordinators going different places, people that used to be with head coaches now in different places. So let's just go through it quickly. We have not responded to the Browns hiring Todd Monken as the new head coach. Your thoughts? He had them. We were talking to our friend Andrew Siciliano before he went off to the Gold Zone, where he's crushing it for the Olympics. He had just listened to the Monken's first press conference, and he was like, "Wow, we're a lot of energy there."
Real football guy.
Football guy.
He showed up. There was that tweet that he showed up looking like a deadbeat dad trying to prove to the courts that he was finally off the booze. Just like jeans, dad like sneakers and a jacket. Like a really ill-fitting sports coat.
Everything's too big.
Yeah, it's like he's a man who's used to spending his entire life in free gifted team apparel, and suddenly has to dress himself for a day, and just is not equipped to do it. Yeah. So he's all about the football. It's an interest. It's not one that anyone. I'm more interested in the fact that it's such a kind of surprising hire in terms of everyone really expected him to go to the New York Giants with Harbaugh, just hook up with Jackson Dart and be good to go, right? Like keep the band together, keep on trucking, and suddenly he makes an about switch and is now the head coach of the Browns.
The biggest story coming out of that, though, is that the Browns, every time they interviewed somebody, said, "Hey, we really want to keep Jim Schwartz here as defensive coordinator."
Yes.
But Schwartz was in the running for the head coaching job, and they go with Monken, and then Schwartz is...
that whole dynamic is kind of crazy. Yeah, it sounds like the Browns, basically everybody they talked to for a head coach said, Jim Schwartz as DC is part of the package here, right? You don't get to, whoever you had in your mind as your defense coordinator, forget it. You're only getting this job if you're willing to take Jim Schwartz as the defense coordinator. He's done such a good job here the last few seasons. At the same time, they interviewed Jim Schwartz for head coach, and Jim Schwartz apparently seemed to be under the impression that he was at least, heavily in the running for that head coaching job, or maybe it was going to be given to him. In the end, they don't give it to Jim Schwartz. They go somewhere else, and Jim's like, well, I'm not staying here for that. So the Browns seem to have been under the impression that they were able to keep Jim Schwartz as DC come on May, and as soon as they gave the job to somebody other than Jim Schwartz as the head coach, Jim was like, well, screw you, I'm out of here.
And that defense, by the way, I know Myles Garrett's been there the entire time, but in 2022, they were not good whatsoever. They fired Joe Woods. They bring in Jim Schwartz. Their defense is one of the best in the league. Regressed a little bit in 24, but they were right back there again this year. So 2 out of 3 years, Schwartz is leading one of the best defenses in the league. That was when they finally revamped the offensive line. Remember in 22, we said it is literally just Myles Garrett. They have no help. They got help. They're a 4-man rush type of team under Schwartz. So 2 out of the last 3 years, they've been one of the league's best. And so they are losing that. That is a factor.
Yeah, it's a big factor. It's just a crazy, it's a huge factor. I mean, he's been one of the better coaches. There's a reason that they wanted to keep him as part of the package at DC. It's such a I don't understand how that happens. Like how...
I wonder if they went to Monken and said, look, we want... I just wonder what happened with the communication there. Did they
I don't
know?
understand how they didn't know that Jim Schwartz was going to throw his toys out of the pram and leave if they didn't give him the head coaching job. Like, how could you be so adamant?
Have that conversation with him, like, hey, if we go with Todd,
forget Todd,
you're sticking around,
anybody, right? Like, how do you not have the conversation? Because he was so pissed. Like, he resigned. It's not like they didn't have him under contract and he was free to leave. He actively, and immediately as soon as this happened, the reports were that he was like livid with the situation, ends up basically resigning. Like, how do they not get that basically ironclad that, hey, you're in the running for this head coaching job. Like, we're talking to you, but we're also talking to a bunch of other people. If one of those guys gets the job, what happens here? Unless... I mean, did he somehow convince them that, no, that's fine, assuming that maybe they'd give him the job and then it wouldn't be a problem, and then as soon as it was, we're like, nah, screw those guys. It's just such a weird, it's just a bizarre, I don't understand. It's such a weird breakdown.
But once again, I have no idea how Todd will do for the Browns.
Right.
As head coach. Interesting to see what happens on the defensive side of the ball. Plus, as he said, they were going to draft Shedeur Sanders when he was with the Ravens.
Yes.
So he's a Shedeur fan. I believe we talked about the Robert Saleh.
Yeah, I think so. Monken, by the way, is interesting as well because he's so kind of long in the tooth. You know, he's 60. He's been a guy who's been offense coordinators multiple times, hasn't been an NFL head coach. He's been a college head coach, right? But it's an unusual pathway. You don't tend to see them lasting this long before they get their first head coaching opportunity.
Was he a college head coach?
I think so.
Am I missing that?
Southern Miss? Didn't he coach Southern Miss?
Oh, yeah, he did. That's right. We had to do... Oh, that's right. Some team made us go back and grade 2013 Southern Miss or something to do scouting for him.
Really?
Yeah. If you look at the PFF database, there's some random 2013 Southern Miss games because PFF started in 2014 with college. There's some random Southern Miss games. I can't remember when this would have been. Maybe it was when he was going to Georgia and a team requested more Southern Miss data,
of course,
I think, to prepare for him going to his OC job at Georgia, if I remember. Ben would know.
It's just such a fascinating...
He's been the OC for the Ravens last 3 years.
Yeah, like it's an interesting hire because he's an unusual pathway to being a first-time head coach, but it's an NFL head coach. And then it's also a really fascinating breakdown in communication, assuming you could bring Jim Schwartz back at DC and him vociferously throwing his toys out of the pram the second he didn't get the job. Yeah,
Browns remain fascinating.
It's very... I mean, it's the kind of thing that seems like it could only happen to the Browns. Maybe the Jets.
Cardinals hire Mike LaFleur. So it's all friends of Kyle and friends of Sean getting jobs around the league. He was technically the OC for the Rams.
Right.
Matt LaFleur's brother. We know that Sean McVay is the play caller, but he had the offensive coordinator title for the Rams.
I mean, the most interesting thing to me about that is now there are multiple Malik Willis connections throughout the NFL, each of whom needs a quarterback at a time where Malik Willis is scheduled to hit free agency and has come off a back of a bunch of really impressive performances. So you've got Mike LaFleur now in Arizona with Kyler Murray presumably on his way out, given how the last couple of years have panned out for him, with Jacoby Brissett not really an answer at quarterback, long term. So would Mike LaFleur get a favorable scouting report from his brother about Malik Willis? And then obviously you've got Halfley in Miami, a team who also presumably is on their way out with their quarterback and doesn't really have an answer. So, again, it's the same answer of like, yeah, who knows? He might be good. I will say about Mike LaFleur, he has been talked about for a long time as one of these future head coaches in waiting, but also he's now been around some very impressive coaches. So who knows whether he's able to do that, but he's at least seen how a bunch of guys do this at a high level.
Yeah.
Which has got to be something, right?
For sure. I mean, so McVay, Shanahan, Kubiak systems all over. We've got the McDonald, Jesse Minter schemes on defense all over. We're going to talk more about it. Clint Kubiak officially hired by the Raiders. That was announced Sunday night, right after the game, basically. He admitted it. So Kubiak coming off the Super Bowl win and dialed up the A.J. Barner touchdown, which he did in the Super Bowl. He did in the Thursday night Rams game, dialing up a wide-open touchdown. He had some key play calls this year in helping Sam Darnold in leading that offense to Super Bowl title.
Yeah, and I would say similar things. Another guy that's been around a lot of high-level NFL head coaches at this point, in addition to being raised by one. So there's another guy that's seen a lot of people do this themselves. It's got to help you figure out how to present yourself to a room full of NFL players, Can't be it can't hurt. And I would imagine it has to be a help seeing that many people. How do you control a room? How do you address players? How do you get people to follow you in this kind of situation? So again, another guy that's been earmarked as a coach for a long time. Let's see how he does now that he's the guy.
I'm not saying this had any effect on it, and I think that the Tom Brady owner / broadcaster crossover deal is a little overrated, but it isn't. Brady's had extra access to Clint Kubiak the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Calling the NFC Championship, calling a couple of his games down the stretch. I know some other people were talking about, wow, we got to see his best performances in person, which I think is very overrated, obviously.
But might be a factor. I mean,
I know. I'm not saying it doesn't influence the human nature
right.
of things. It's just it's dumb to say, well, this game happened when I was there versus just watching the film remotely. It's the same thing happened no matter where you are.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have that connection, and, of course, we'll talk a lot about Fernando Mendoza being the expected quarterback there for the Raiders. And then the Ravens hire Jesse Minter. This is where we're cross-pollinating all across the world here. Chargers have a lot of their Ravens connections. Minter goes back or goes to Baltimore here. That's where Mike McDonald was a couple of years ago. Minter running that similar scheme that he brought from Michigan to the Chargers. Chargers had an excellent defense these last couple of years, so Minter to the Ravens was interesting hire. Again, I don't remember if we talked about this yet on the show.
I mean, he just feels like a Ravens coach, right? I mean, he was, right? He was a defensive backs coach or whatever for them back when. But he feels like he should be the Ravens coach. So this is just a natural fit.
So the up-and-coming defensive coordinator, this just worked for Seattle. I mean, the other part about that is it's not just X's and O's and scheme. We know it's all these other pieces that we don't know. We don't know how well that guy's going to do.
Seeing your kids for 30 minutes a week. Got to get that dialed in. Mike McDonald just showed us that. Schedule it. 30 minutes. That's it. Out.
That's all the kid
back
needs.
to football.
Oh, Mike. So Minter to the Ravens. Any other thoughts on that?
No, I mean, other than, it feels like a natural fit. I think defense is certainly the side of the ball that they need to get fixed more than the other side. And, we'll see.
And they just brought back Anthony Weaver as defensive coordinator. So This is where the musical chairs is messing with my brain. He was just DC in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
He was getting a lot of hype.
Yeah,
for head coaching
even
jobs.
though their defense was garbage.
Right. But he's
a little confusing.
Again, similar scheme, similarities to what they were doing.
And from Baltimore, yeah.
And back to Baltimore here. So that's Minter to the Ravens. Dolphins with Jeff Hafley. So the Packers connection going down there. Bobby Slowick as the offensive coordinator there as well.
That's interesting. Because Bobby had been there. What was his title last year? Like pass game coordinator or something?
Pass game coordinator, I believe, yeah.
So he's gone from pass game coordinator under Mike McDaniel, to offense coordinator under a completely different head coach with no connection, right? They don't.
Well, they both coached. Hafley and Bobby were both in San Francisco.
But I'm saying McDaniel and Hafley don't have any connection, right?
They were all together in San Francisco, I believe.
Oh, San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hafley was in San Francisco for a minute. when they were, I think, in 2019 when they went to the Super Bowl.
Okay, that makes sense then.
But you have John Eric Sullivan coming over from the Packers, Halfley coming over from the Packers, and then Bobby retained from Miami there. And, Halfley's defense, I think they've done a pretty good job. They helped get the Packers back on track, and we've got another, more the branches of the Packers front office tree around the league.
Yeah, and as I say, that is interesting because he's also got that Malik Willis connection when the Dolphins need some kind of solution at quarterback.
The rumors yesterday were that the Dolphins and Browns have the most interest in Malik Willis.
Dolphins and Browns. Now, the Cardinals, not there yet. The Browns are fascinating to me because they have 2 first-rounders. So it's like we did the mock draft the other day where I think I gave them Carnell Tate and a tackle. If they could add 2 pieces plus Malik Willis, that'll look interesting. And then same thing with Miami. I mean, who knows
Malik Willis, you still need some weapons in line. But
who knows what the contract ends up being. But I honestly don't understand how the Browns could even do that contract-wise. They've got so much they need to spend money on, and Deshaun Watson's contract is still there. I don't see how if Malik Willis is getting any kind of serious money, I don't understand how the Browns could even pull that off.
Yeah, it might be a challenge for them. Bobby's second chance calling plays here as well.
Yeah.
See how this all goes.
I mean, it's a real redemption opportunity for him. Remember, he was like he had the Seattle job effectively in hand, and they decided, no, we're going to go back to Houston. Got him with a pay bump.
If Bobby got the Seattle job, they probably would have won the Super Bowl by more points.
Or earlier.
Yeah, last year.
Right.
It'd be back-to-back champs.
That's what I'm saying.
Definitely.
So instead, he goes back to Houston with a pay bump, and then like a year later, not even a year later, a few months later, is run out of town as the problem in Houston. Goes to Mike McDaniel in Miami, pass game coordinator. Then that coaching staff gets fired, and then he ends up getting rehired or retained with a promotion, I guess, by Halfley. It's kind of fascinating journey for Bobby, but a real chance to bounce back, assuming they can find him a quarterback, which is a pretty big part of that.
Steelers hire Mike McCarthy as the head coach. I don't believe we've had a reaction to this just yet. What were your thoughts on McCarthy going to the Steelers?
I mean, I think I tweeted this out that it feels like we speculated what would the search look like, right? The Steelers are the most stable franchise in the NFL in terms of coaching hires. They've had like 3 guys since 1960-something. And this is a new owner effectively dealing with that legacy and being like, all right, what am I looking for in a coach given what we've had for the last 50 years or whatever? This, to me, feels like the move you make as the owner if you really don't want to get it badly wrong, right? It's not the move you make if you're shooting for the moon. It's the move you make if you're shooting to not have to do it again in a year or two's time and look like the guy that ruined the streak. Like, this is Mike McCarthy's a steady pair of hands who can do it for enough years that at least it won't be an embarrassment.
I try not to jump into like the social media fodder because generally the reaction here is LOL, Mike McCarthy, retread coach. If there's one thing public sentiment hates, it's second and third chance coaches. And I'm not saying it's necessarily wrong.
Because by definition, it ended badly.
Right. It ended badly wherever it was.
Yeah.
And sometimes it ended badly twice. And the problem is, unless you win a Super, it's the same thing, right? We're sitting here, like people are rethinking everything about Drake May and the Patriots right now just because they lost the Super Bowl in pretty dominant fashion by Seattle. Was Drake May ever really that good?
Right.
Is he ever going to be that good? Is he overrated? Should he not have been MVP?
Was he a fraud all along?
Right. So we cannot. Enough people can't think critically. You either win it all or you're a fraud.
Yep.
So I'm torn on the Mike McCarthy thing because I don't want to tie coaching success to the elite quarterback because I think that's scary. It's really tough to replicate. So he had a lot of success with Aaron Rodgers. You could argue that they underachieved a little bit given that they had Aaron Rodgers. Is that McCarthy? Is that Rodgers? Is that the roster? What was it? But then he goes to Dallas. And we were having these similar conversations, right? Are they underachieving? There's this loaded team that keeps winning 12 games and they can't get over the hump. And so to me, it's like there's some similarities to Tomlin right? Like, his last place was Dallas, where we said they can't win more than one playoff game. That's an issue. But Boyce going to get you on the green and maybe beyond, right? Host a playoff game. We're going to be 12-win team. They were really, really good. And he had Dak, right? So he had Dak, who's, top 8 in his era, maybe even better. At the same time, he got some good years out of Dak, right? Did he develop Dak and Rodgers and Joe Montana? Maybe not. But he's been in and around some good quarterbacks and had some success. So it's like, on one hand, all of his teams seem to hit a ceiling.
Yeah.
On the other hand, the floor does seem high, but the floor has coincided with having a quarterback there that he inherited.
Right.
So
a lot of it
that's
is
where
like,
I'm back and forth on this, and it lands as like, again, I don't know.
A lot
of people are like, oh, Mike McCarthy, we're going to bring Mike McCarthy back. You're just asking for failure. But
a lot of it is like, what is your goal here? Like, and if your goal is to just not lose a lot of games and be good again, it's probably a pretty decent hire. Like, people have basically called him, I mean, he's just Mike Tomlin, but, different. It's the same thing. You just
offensive Mike Tomlin.
Right, like the Spider-Man meme, or, we just did the same thing. We just hired the same guy who's just a different human being. And there's some merit to that idea of, like, did you actually fire Mike Tomlin because he stopped being a viable head coach, or did you fire Mike Tomlin because you decided that it was too hard to from a PR standpoint, to keep him around year after year after year with effectively the same results? Or you decided that his message had gotten stale. That doesn't mean the message is stale. Like, the things that he's doing might still be solid. So there's actually a logic to just bringing back the same guy in a different bodysuit again, right? If Mike McCarthy is effectively doing the same things, if a different messenger revives them briefly, it might actually be the right move. But the big thing for Pittsburgh is going to be, again, what is the solution at quarterback, which is the same thing that's been the case every time post Big Ben, right? You had Big Ben from 2004 onwards, and then once you stopped having Big Ben, you've had problems. That's still the case.
So they still need a quarterback. This has sparked the rumors that Aaron Rodgers would come back.
Which itself is fascinating because they reportedly kind of hated each other by the end of the Green Bay thing.
And I'll be honest, part of my own, souring on Mike McCarthy was the way things ended in Green Bay, and I was thinking, man, his offense is just stale.
Yeah.
It's a whole bunch of one-on-ones and ISO routes, and he's not scheming it up. And I remember other people saying something similar. But now, 8 years later, we realize that's kind of how Rodgers played. That's Rodgers' interpretation of how he wants to play ball, and not necessarily McCarthy's, because I think McCarthy, with Shouty in Dallas, they did a pretty good job offensively with the Cowboys. So McCarthy's an interesting one, and as is the Rodgers connection, because, it seemed to run its course in 2017 and 18, their last couple of years together. And I don't know if you really want to. I don't think you want to run it back 8 years later. I don't think you want to.
But you might not have a better option. I mean, this is the thing. Like,
they got to look to the future.
One last go around with Rodgers and McCarthy back in business, then try and find a quarterback. I mean, again, in this world of if next year's draft class is, so much better, is there any point in drafting a guy this year? Let's just punt for a year and hope next year we fall into one. I mean, who knows?
We got the Bills hiring Joe Brady as head coach. What were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, another kind of slightly interesting pathway. A guy who, again, was earmarked as like head coach in waiting, and then actually went from that all the way to being completely unemployed. Like, the Bills rescued him effectively from having been run out of town completely in Carolina. And then he goes offensive coordinator there, takes over from Ken Dorsey, right? And then got a little bump there, and then same stalling of the Bills' progress in the playoffs every year, and we finally get rid of McDermott, and they just elevate Joe Brady.
So the thing I like the continuity for Allen. I think Allen would be OC proof, right? He's very good.
Right.
But I like the continuity for Allen. And then it gives them the opportunity to change up the defense. I think it was look, as much as we talk about the X receiver and the offense and what have you, I don't think the offense is stale. The most stale part is that, they on 3rd and long, they got to throw bubble screens way too often. But I think the defense is what got stale. Come playoff time, McDermott's defense was very good. McDermott's defense was very much like the whole Tomlin era with the Steelers. It's like, it's good, it's fine overall, and then it just doesn't work in the playoffs well. That's why I like that continuity on offense, make some changes defensively, and see if they can
That's
get over
the
the
thing.
hump.
Honestly, the biggest part of this hiring might be the hiring of Jim Leonard as the defensive coordinator, because that's a shift in defensive philosophy. That's the thing that people were very critical of McDermott of, I think, by the end, is that this defense is too easy to attack. It's bend but don't break system finally ran out of gas in terms of turnovers last season. You know, they had been one of the best turnover teams for years. Remember, was it last offseason? We were literally just being like, maybe you can actually. The Bills are the one team that can actually just be turnover proof. It's not a thing you can do, but apparently the Bills were able to do it right up until we finally acknowledged. It's like, seeing it. As soon as you don't talk about Fight Club, like that's rule number one. As soon as you acknowledge that the Bills actually had some kind of turnover magic, it completely evaporated. But Jim Leonard doesn't, he's far more complex on defense than that. He's far more aggressive in terms of blitzes and, simulated pressures and all that kind of stuff. So this is going to be a shift in defensive philosophy for the Bills, and something I think a lot of people have been crying out for. I think that's the most interesting part of it.
And Leonard had been an expected DC in waiting for a while, right? This was multiple years. He's been with Denver the last couple of years as DB coach, associate head coach, pass game coordinator, various roles.
I mean, he was being talked up a ton basically from day one, even in college. Like the second he became a coach, people were like, this guy's going to be a star.
Defensive coordinator at Wisconsin for many years, and where he played. So, that change going to be an interesting one to keep an eye on. So continuity on offense, and then Jim Leonard on defense. The other coordinator changes, just to touch on, see what you want to react
Just
to.
interestingly, in your brain, when you see Jim Leonard, the football player, the NFL player, what uniform's he in?
Jets?
Yes. That's what I would have went with.
And
yet,
Wisconsin
how long,
first, to be
You know
honest.
how long he was with the Jets?
Like a year?
Yeah,
Was it?
3.
Yeah.
So 3 years
what?
with the Ravens. No, 3 years with the Bills, rather. A year with the Ravens, 3 years with the Jets, a year with the Broncos, a year with the Saints, another year with the Bills, another year with the Browns.
Really?
In my head, that's a Jet.
I just remember him with the Jets. Wisconsin, really. Ball hawk.
Right.
Wisconsin. Offensive coordinator hires, again, we touched on some of these, but Commanders hired David Blau, recently retired. This guy's been in coaching just a couple years here. Young hire there, just like Sean Mannion going to the Eagles as offensive coordinator. I don't know if we touched on that one. But a couple young, fresh out of the NFL quarterbacks, fresh ideas in the NFC East. Lions, Drew Petzing, coming from the Arizona Cardinals. Bucks hiring Zach Robinson, coming from the Falcons. We've talked about the Chargers hiring Mike McDaniel. And then the Chiefs bringing back Eric Bieniemy after a few years, bouncing around different places.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by a few of those from a storyline point of view. I love Zach with Baker just because we get Baker stories, and I'm all for that.
Yeah.
It'll also be interesting to see Zach with us, just a different dynamic, different set of requirements and restrictions and circumstances and blah, blah, blah. So I'm just all for seeing that. I think it's a good spot for Zach to land. So all good. Chargers hiring Mike McDaniel is a really interesting one. That's kind of a coup for them. Again, not to relitigate the Justin Herbert for MVP thing, but people were not kind to Greg Roman's offense, which was the offense that Justin Herbert was operating for his entire time there. So whatever you want to talk about supporting structure, again, three pillars of quarterback support system: scheme, offensive line, receivers. Offensive line, literally the worst in the NFL. Receivers, not good, better on paper than they actually were in the season. And then offensive system, generally ridiculed, run out of town, right? So the three things that were supposed to be helping Herbert out, you could argue none of them were. Anyway, Mike McDaniel's offense, generally has been a really good offense, but you have this sort of dynamic of, has it been found out? Are there limitations to it? If there are, how much of them are Tua, right? What happens if you replace Tua, ironically, with Justin Herbert, the guy that he was, paired with effectively at draft time because they were in direct competition then? I just think that's a really interesting and potentially good hire for them.
Yeah, the McDaniel thing, learn a lot how much, you could give him the credit for Tua's great seasons. The before and after of Tua were unbelievable. You could give Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle a lot of the credit, especially Tyreek, given what he brings to an offense, but we'll learn a lot about them. I'm with you on Zach's second chance here. Petzing's second chance too, because look, the Cardinals had an okay offense these last couple of years. They ran the ball well last year, not so much this year. They got pretty good pass game success given the limitations that Jacoby Brissett brings to the table. and now they're in Detroit, right? And the Detroit thing, it's like, man, you've got a lot of weapons, a lot of past success, and see how that ends up working out. And then the Mannion in Philadelphia and Blau with the Commanders.
The solution to offensive coaches is just find yourself a pretty terrible backup quarterback in the NFL, and that guy is apparently going to be a coaching savant. Whether it's Davis Webb, whether it's David Blau, whether it's Sean Mannion, you just go grab yourself a garbage backup NFL quarterback, and that guy is your solution at offensive coordinator in a few years' time. I mean, it's what happens.
Zach wasn't even a backup. He was barely third string when he was out there.
Yeah, like just clicking onto rosters.
Practice squad guy.
Right. And then, no matter what happens, the story surrounding Eric Bieniemy will be fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I mean,
the wit without.
There's no consistent train of anything with Eric Bieniemy. For years, people were like, Bieniemy, why isn't he getting a head coaching gig? The guy's been phenomenal. Look at what's happening with this offense. He's the driving force. And then it looked like he left to go get a different job, literally to basically prove that, hey, I can do this without Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. And then that didn't work out. And so suddenly all the shine disappears off his head coaching credentials.
The reports were the word accountability came up a lot. Some people would say he's just, old school, difficult coach.
Right. But like he goes to Washington to be their offense coordinator and assistant head coach. It was basically a job designed to get him a head coaching gig, right? And that went badly enough that he didn't last there longer than a year. He then goes to UCLA in college with effectively the same job, and that goes catastrophically badly as well. So suddenly you've got like two jobs that were basically set up to get him a head coaching job, each of which went terribly, and he ends up going back to Chicago as running backs coach this year for Ben Johnson's coaching staff. So that's like your career basically died. It stalled and, crashed into a mountain. But now after a year, he's back on the train. It's like now he's getting credit for Ben Johnson's offense. And, oh, look, DeAndre Swift suddenly looks like he knows what he's doing. Maybe that's Eric Bieniemy. And so at the same time,
you never know,
But at the same time, Kansas City's offense fell apart almost as soon as he left.
Right.
And so you've got this amazing wit without, which Eric Bieniemy's part of it crapped out, but also the part that he left crapped out. So now you've got, I don't know, what happens when Eric Bieniemy goes back to Kansas City? Does it fix everything? Was it just a unique chemistry between Eric Bieniemy, Andy Reid, and Patrick Mahomes that requires all of them together for it to work? Or was actually Tyreek Hill the driving force behind all of it, and they're all irrelevant?
And you always have to preface, I know there was one great season without Tyreek Hill there.
Right.
But and at the end of the day, Andy Reid's still the play caller, right?
Of course. But it's just such a fascinating situation where, the combination that had this group so good and was creating the one, why is Eric Bieniemy not getting head coaching offers? Well, as soon as they departed, both parts of it fell apart to different degrees, but both parts of it fell apart. And now they're reuniting off the back of a little bit of hype, Ben Johnson potentially resuscitating Eric Bieniemy's career. And it's like,
with the Matt Nagy soft firing.
Right, exactly.
Quiet firing.
This will be such an interesting thing if it suddenly sparks back to life. Like if Mahomes has a resurgent year, if the Chiefs are back, it's going to be such a wild narrative off the back of Eric Bieniemy walks back in the building and suddenly the offense is amazing again.
Defensive coordinator hires. We have the Commanders bringing in Durante Jones, Cowboys hiring Christian Parker from the Eagles, and we mentioned the Ravens hiring Anthony Weaver as defensive coordinator. Just to touch on those quickly. Parker coming over from the Eagles. The Fangio system is interesting for Dallas. He's a hot name as a pass game coordinator coming out of there. And then Durante Jones coming from Minnesota.
Twice.
Yeah. We'll see if,
He both pre- and post-dates Flores, right? He was there before Flores and then during Flores.
So again, we always attach names like who's your mentor? What scheme were you just with? Is he bringing Flores type stuff or just pieces of it? I mean, every coordinator is their own, and they can honestly, every coordinator could run any system that they want. It's not that complicated. Oh, I want to run more cover 2. I want to run more man. Well, you could do whatever you want. It's just going to be interesting to see what blend people bring.
It's also always interesting, these guys who are retained or brought back by teams despite different coaching staffs, right? Again, the Bobby Slowick thing. It's kind of interesting. Usually I would say that's the team, whoever is making the calls there in that team recognizes this person as, a coach that they want to keep around, even if it's just for bigger and better things down the line. This one's kind of interesting because he left in the middle. Like, he didn't stay in Minnesota through a coaching change. He was at Minnesota, left Minnesota, came back to Minnesota with a different coach, which is a bizarre pathway as well.
The other one is Brian Callahan, former Titans head coach, going to be QB coach, I believe, now with the Giants. And as colleague Ari Meirov points out, Brian Daboll now coaches Cam Ward, and Brian Callahan now coaches Jackson Dart. We had a coaching trade here.
Yeah.
This one, this carousel is too much. It's too much movement to keep track of.
The Giants coaching staff is getting kind of interesting. Because this was a big part of the John Harbaugh thing, right? It's number one, what kind of coaching staff is he going to assemble?
John.
That's what I said, right? John Harbaugh. Number two,
I'm losing it.
That's generally been a thing he's been very good at in his career, like staffing the coaching staff with very good coaches, and has had a run of really good coordinators that haven't all been the same. There's some interesting hires in this New York Giants coaching staff.
There are. There definitely are. All right, one last hiring we got to touch on. This is the last one. Besides Adam Gase going to the Chargers, that might balance out.
Man, Gase back in the NFL.
Mike McDaniel. Ian Cunningham, by the way, the Vikings need a GM. The Dolphins hired a GM, and the Falcons. That's it. Just 3 GM jobs in this cycle, and the Vikings were late. Ian Cunningham going from the Bears to the Falcons as GM. You get a comp pick if what is it?
You get 2 of them now, right? It's like 3 or 2 third-rounders or something.
If a minority candidate gets the top either head coaching job or
primary football
executive job, you get comp picks. But because Matt Ryan is technically president over Ian Cunningham, the Bears don't get those comp picks. Now, this doesn't affect the Falcons either way. It's not like they're gaming the system to save picks. They're not giving up picks.
Right. It's not a
but the Bears will not receive the comp picks, even though Ian Cunningham will have draft control, free agency control. So it's fascinating because this new structure in the NFL that a lot of teams are employing. We saw the Titans have a president who sits atop and now next to the general manager, Chad Brinker and Mike Bergonzi. We see Tony Baselli as president of the Jags, James Gladstone as the GM. There's a few of these happening around the NFL where there's a president and then a GM structurally. And the Falcons went that way with the Matt Ryan president job for Matt Ryan. And it's going to cost the Bears comp picks because Ian Cunningham is the GM, but he's not technically the primary football executive.
Despite Matt Ryan saying that he's going to run the draft, he's going to do the things that the primary football executive do.
Yeah.
That feels like a failing in the rule. Rewrite it to whatever you need to do to make, because he's getting the job that is supposed to produce those draft picks. And because the Falcons.
I don't know if the Bears can challenge that or what, but.
Because the Falcons have technically made Matt Ryan, the top person in the org chart, right? The Bears don't get draft picks for that. That's just, your rule is broken. Fix your rule.
Ian Cunningham was very close. I believe he was the finalist next to James Gladstone for the Jags job last year. He's been close on a couple jobs, so this will be his opportunity with the Falcons. He played with Matt Ryan.
Independent, by the way, of whether you agree with the rule or not. If the rule's going to exist, then this should qualify.
Right, exactly.
And it's not the Falcons' problem because it's somebody else's draft picks that are being taken away or given. So why would they care?
I can't imagine that the Falcons are even thinking about it.
No,
they're literally just trying to figure out the structure that.
But even if they are, it's not our problem. Why would we give a crap, right? This is the NFL's rule. The NFL's rule is broken to the point where a random title in Atlanta that doesn't make any sense to anybody is affecting Chicago's draft picks. That doesn't make any sense.
And just to finish, going around the league here, a couple player-driven things. Rams right tackle Rob Havenstein retiring after 11 seasons.
Yeah.
The last St. Louis Ram.
I saw that, right.
To retire.
And we thought this would
what a good career.
Be happening. Right, absolutely. We thought this would be happening based off his season, based off the injuries that he's been dealing with for a while. So that part makes sense. It's been a while since he's played a full season, I think. He's had a great career. He's 33, 34 years old.
Dependable right tackle for them.
Dependable right tackle, but the classic guy as well, where we're going to spend the next few months talking about like the physical freaks. You know, oh, look at these guys, this 350-pound dude that runs a 4.8 or whatever. It's like, it's 99th percentile. Havenstein's got to be like the 15th percentile in everything except size.
Just good.
Like he's just a massive human being who had good technique that was enough to overcome being like slow as molasses and, you know, having not got the physical tools. And not just overcome it to the point where he could be viable, but like be a very good player. I mean, he has a couple of seasons where he was like the best right tackle in PFF grading or whatever. He's been a really good player for a long time.
Lions GM Brad Holmes says they would, quote, have conversations, end quote, about trading David Montgomery. So passing the buck, perhaps full-time, to Jahmyr Gibbs. And I think they're at a point from a roster perspective, they're going to have to – they got so many good draft picks over the last 3-4 years that they need to pay.
That's practically a come-and-get-him plea, as they say. Like that's – you don't tend to put that out there.
Interesting offseason for running backs. You've got Breece Hall, Javonte Williams.
Kenneth Walker.
Super
Bowl MVP.
You have one first-round running back, but a couple other second-round type of running backs. There's some running back movement this offseason. Browns tight end David Njoku announcing he will not re-sign with the Browns after 9 seasons. We'll see a lot of tight end movement this offseason as well. A lot of teams that need tight ends in the draft, free agency. Kyle Pitts, pending free agent if they don't tag him. So just
Shadur's favorite target.
Yes, Shadur's favorite.
Harold Fannin, I guess, can step in.
Fannin will be getting more reps here.
Yeah.
49ers defensive end Keon White got shot in the ankle this weekend. Another Niners player. This was, I think, completely unrelated to him. He was just a bystander.
Right.
But it was also like 4 a.m. or something.
Yeah.
It was late night.
It fits into the category of like nothing good happens after 3 a.m. or whatever it is. Also, as whoever chart that was, player shot per NFL roster, it puts the 49ers in the lead now. Now, it's a holdover because they've got, what's his name? Brian Robinson.
Brian Robinson was a commander.
Keon White and Ricky Pearsall. So he wasn't on the roster when he was shot, Robinson, but he's on the roster now. So they now have one more player than anybody else in the NFL on the roster who has been shot.
Substation, man. Substation.
Right.
Cowboys are expected to franchise tag George Pickens every year. There goes all the fun free agency stuff. All the good free agents.
Yeah, but the fun part is, how does he react to that? Like the plan to franchise tag him is interesting enough. The next part is, how does George feel about that?
How does George feel? And then the Seahawks, eligible for contract extensions, they're 2 2023 first-rounders, Jackson Smith and Jigba and Devin Witherspoon.
One of whom was part of the Russell Wilson trade. That was Witherspoon's pick, I think, right?
House that Russ built.
Right.
In Seattle. And Russ said, hey,
now you can use some of that money.
Congrats,
that you
Seahawks.
saved on Witherspoon.
Is he still on the payroll?
Both of them. I mean, this is the part, right? The half of those decisions is, okay, trading away the big asset, getting the draft haul, et cetera. Then you got to make use of the draft haul because plenty of teams have done that and then absolutely dumped the draft picks and have done nothing with them. That coincides with John Schneider then knocking it out of the park with every first-round pick he's made in the last few years, including these 2 that are now up for extensions.
Yeah, looks good. Last 3, I was trying to figure out where I'm losing it. I might be getting sick. Last 3 drafts have been strong for the Seahawks.
Very strong.
Is what I was trying to say. Might lead to a Super Bowl. Never know.
Maybe.
All right, let's wrap it up by talking about our friends over at Root Insurance. Root Insurance believes that good drivers deserve better rates, so they've created a new kind of car insurance that rewards good drivers in an easy-to-use app. Traditional car insurance companies focus on demographics like age, zip code, occupation, and credit score to price your coverage. When Root offers a rate, your behavior behind the wheel gets more weight than any other single factor. They don't use occupation or education level to negatively affect your rate. While you drive, Root gathers and analyzes data from your smartphone sensors. After a few weeks, you'll get a car insurance quote based primarily on your driving. Save up to 44% off your initial Root quote after you take the test drive. If you need a tow truck, jump start, or lock your keys in the car, the Root will cover the help you need to get back on the road when you opt into Roadside Assistance. The Root app makes it easy to edit your coverage, update your policy, or file a claim in just 3 minutes. You can get started today at Root.com. And today we're providing Roadside Assistance for the New England Patriots coming off the Super Bowl loss. How do you get back? Do you panic? Is Will Campbell a guard? Is Drake May overrated? How do you fix New England so they can get back?
Gotta find yourself an MVP caliber quarterback.
Yeah, not a number 3 candidate.
I mean, it's a work in progress, right? Like the offensive line is still not great. Now, how much does that get better just by 2 rookies going into year 2 on the left side? Will Campbell. The other thing, by the way, that number one, I think he was getting generally scapegoated from that performance. I don't think he was as bad as people were talking about. Number 2, he has been dealing with an MCL tear, grade 3, which is the worst type of tear, for like a while. Like the whole playoff run, he's been dealing with this MCL thing. So
he missed a big chunk of the end of the season.
Yeah. In addition to going up against some truly terrifying elite pass rushers, he's also been doing it with a bum knee. Now, Mitchell Schwartz, former All-Pro caliber right tackle, All-Pro right tackle, has been saying
never made it to the Pro Bowl though.
No Pro Bowl, but All-Pro. He's been saying, look, if it's the inside leg and an MCL, it's not that big a deal. You can get through it. It's it's not the reason he's getting bull rushed into people's laps every 3 seconds. So, but it's got to be a factor, right? Like a grade 3 MCL sprain is not. It's nothing. It's no joke.
Dr. Chow, I believe, thinks he's about 95% healthy as well. So he was calling it not a great excuse. It's not like he's on the injury report every week.
But it's at least like he's going into year 2. It's a year in the league. It's a year of development. He's also presumably coming into next season without an MCL problem, right? So there's the question of how much better the left side of that offensive line gets just by those 2 guys getting a year of experience and going into next season. But the great Morgan Moses is reaching the end of his illustrious career. Maybe you could upgrade there. Like there are still moves that can be made on this offensive line. The receiving core is still questionable. Like it was still very much driven by an aging Stephon Diggs, who even if he's got more years under the belt in terms of on-field play, is probably a ticking time bomb in terms of how long he's going to last before he either gets upset with you or you get upset with him. There's also his legal issue that's still bubbling away in the background. Maybe you don't even have him next year, depending on how that pans out in the offseason. Point is, you should probably upgrade receiver. Again, Kyle Williams may be there. Maybe he takes a huge step. Do what you did last year. Swing at the 2 positions that you still need to fix.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this the other day. Treat this offseason like you're in rebuild mode, which they still are. They're still in rebuild mode. They just happen to make a Super Bowl this year. Both sides, they did a really good job revamping the defense this offseason. I think there's still more work to do on offense, as you've mentioned. Both O-line, playmaker, rumblings around the league. Rumblings that Stephon Diggs, won't be back. They won't be able to they won't want to make that move to bring him back.
I mean, most people don't seem to after a year of Stephon Diggs. It's kind of like that Brian Robinson video of, there's a growing consensus around the locker room that you're not a great guy.
Yeah.
The team seem to think that too.
He seems like a one and done in each spot type of player right now. So that could be it. So I think that's fine. Mike Vrabel also came out yesterday and said, hey, Will Campbell is our left tackle. He's not moving to left guard. A lot of the O-line community, they didn't come to his defense. They just said, this is all correctable. They don't care about the arm length. They don't care about, now Renner, still the best point that Renner made on all of this is the wingspan. It's the frame more so than the arm length.
But that's not, again, all those guys are sort of adamant that that's not the failing at the moment. It's not a wingspan or arm length problem that he's dealing with right now. It's everything else. And the technique is bad.
I'll remind people, so there's 2 things that are true here. Luke Gedeke, Braden Smith. They're 2 of the better tackles in the league. They both play on the right side. Gedeke for the Bucks. Braden Smith will hit free agency. He's a Colt. Both sub 33-inch arms. Very successful players. Braden Smith was actually one of the rarest moves you'll see. He was a guard in college who became a tackle in the NFL. Went the other way. That never happens. You don't see college guards become tackles. It's like him and Trent Brown. I think the only 2 that I can think of off the top of my head. Gedeke struggled as a rookie. Now, he did it at guard, where he was probably playing out of position. They moved him out to tackle. He just signed long-term with the Bucs. He's a very good tackle.
Braden Smith was pretty good right away, right?
Braden Smith was pretty good right away, and again, converting from guard. It's not like this is impossible. The other comparison you could make is Andrew Thomas. Now, Thomas was more of a distinct line in the sand that you could draw. Number 4 overall pick, goes to the Giants, awful his first 7, 8, 9 weeks of his career, and then got better. They had completely changed his technique, but he sorted it out and became one of the best left tackles in the NFL. Mm-hmm. The argument against would be, but Andrew Thomas had left tackle tools. Will Campbell never has. You can make that argument all you want. That's fine. But a lot of people adamant that, hey, punch timing, his sets, his pass sets, the fact that he's unprepared to anchor, he's not getting to his landmarks quickly enough, all of that stuff is fixable, and the Patriots are banking on that being fixable in the coming years.
Yeah.
And I think that's reasonable. And as you said, I think at worst, he's an average left tackle, which is A, valuable in the NFL,
Yeah.
B, also you have games where you give up a lot of pressure.
I mean,
And by the way, I believe PFF ended up at 9 pressures for Campbell versus 14 for NGS. So what I may have underrated. I may have thought it was better.
It ended up. It's 8.
It ended up being pretty bad.
It's 8.
8
One
official
of them, I think,
pressures,
must
a couple
have been.
other losses in there. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't great the other night.
No.
I may have gone too far the other way in defending him. It wasn't great. Never thought it was great, but I
Right.
just didn't think it was as bad as the 14
No.
that's going around. And because that 14 number's been going around, people think he's like the worst tackle in history. I've never seen so much heat
That's the
on
thing.
a tackle in a long, long time.
He also wasn't the only guy getting his ass kicked in that game. Like,
It was the overall protection scheme,
Yeah.
too. It wasn't the one-on-ones. It was the fact that there were unblocked rushers with no answers.
Right.
Right? There were no hots behind the unblocked rushers over and over and over again. Masterclass on the defensive side of the ball and
Yeah.
seemingly unprepared on the offensive side of the ball between Josh McDaniels,
Right.
Drake May,
the
and
level
and the entire offense.
The level of hate been thrown at Will Campbell, I think, has been pretty crazy based off the back of that game. I'm not saying he was good, but I don't think he deserved the level. Like, he was the sole focus of everything that went bad in that game, which I think is pretty crazy. I mean, even on the offensive line, I think Garrett Bradbury was every bit as bad as Will Campbell was, and I haven't heard Garrett Bradbury's name mentioned since the Super Bowl, right? And yet
nobody's seeing Anthony Bradford's name mentioned with Seattle.
Right.
He had some
they
awful
won,
blocks
but
in
that makes
game.
sense.
Right, but they won, obviously.
But I'm saying, even in terms of a loss, even in terms of where's the blame going, who do we, burn at the pyre, right? I haven't heard Garrett Bradbury's name mentioned, and yet I would say he's every bit as bad in that game as Will Campbell was. So, yeah, I think he's being unfairly scapegoated. And unlike Bradbury, who's deep into his career and has never been particularly good, Will Campbell might be better next year. It's year 2. There's no reason to think that.
Linemen usually take 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
3 to 4 years sometimes.
Right.
To figure it out. And the fact Campbell was not awful this year. The fact that he wasn't awful as a rookie bodes well. I still get concerned when he's left on an island against good rushers. It looks ugly. That's your Charles Leno take. So
it's also like, the worst run he's had have been the run against elite pass rushers, right? Like, that's probably not coincidental. The fact that the worst he's looked is when he had to block Will Anderson Jr., Nick Bonito, and then whoever Seattle are going to deploy in his side, over the course of an entire game. And those are the 3 games he looked really in over his head.
Right.
That's probably not a fluke, right? Most games you're not having to block one of the elite pass rushes in the NFL.
The one other thing I'll say about the anchor, I use this example a lot. David Bakhtiari with the Packers, his rookie season way back in 2013. I remember looking at him saying every time he loses, this isn't Campbell necessarily, but every time Bakhtiari lost was with pure power. His footwork was outstanding. Couldn't beat him to the edge. And then he just improved his core strength and technique. But he improved his core strength, handled the bull rush, became one of the best pass blocking left tackles in the NFL. That part of a player's game, years 1, 2, 3, 4 in the NFL, early in their rookie contract, can improve. Now, again, I've got problems with Campbell's punch timing and losing to the outside, and just all of his losses are bad.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of slow losses. They're bad. So he's got to clean all that up. I just never forget Bakhtiari and mention that a lot, that I think that part of a player's game can improve, the ability to anchor and handle power.
Yeah, I just think we're judging him right now at his worst, right? Like, we're looking at the worst version of Will Campbell and saying that guy doesn't belong at left tackle. I mean, that might be true, that the worst version of him doesn't, but that's not who he's seen for most of the year. Like, he's been a solid left tackle for most of the year. It's just that when he went up against 3 elite caliber pass rushes in the playoffs, I mean, again, elite players beat good players, right? That's the problem you're dealing with here. And if his ceiling is good, then when he faces an elite player, he's probably going to lose. But that's the case for most players. Unless you have an elite player at that position, then you're going to get overmatched when you face somebody who's at that caliber.
The other part about Drake May, the shoulder injury, have no idea how much that affected his accuracy, but the thing that needs to improve for him with Roadside Assistance, I think it's his decision-making under pressure. That was a bigger issue during the playoff run than missing a few throws.
And generally, it's not the decision-making of throwing it into bad spots, although the interception was bizarre.
Yeah.
It's more the throw it or not throw it thing.
Yeah.
It's like the pressure's getting here, get rid of it.
Yeah. So I think there's definitely times this year where I thought May's pocket movement was outstanding. There's other times I felt like he stepped up into sacks or he didn't step up and just decided to throw through pressure, and that led to a lot of strip sacks and fumbles. So, look, I think they're going to be better, I think they're going to be okay. I think the challenge for New England, it's like Buffalo's still really good. I mean, the AFC is still going to be very good going forward, but stay the course, continue like it's a rebuild, continue to add playmakers on the outside, especially if Diggs is gone, and go from there. Trust Will Campbell to improve.
Trust the process.
As Vrabel's going to. Fun show. We haven't had a long, rambling show in a while. It's good to get it all out, despite whatever cold I'm coming down with here. It's me and Mad Dog playing through. Can't believe these $50 million players are load managing on a Tuesday night. Can't believe it.
I agree with Mad Dog on that as well, by the way.
Load management is ridiculous.
Yeah. You're paid millions of dollars. Play the next day.
Play the games.
Do it.
Play the games.
Otherwise, reduce
you think Jordan managed his load?
He didn't.
Do you think Jordan, it's time to go? Do you think Jordan was taking days off? I don't think so.
No, I mean, he's famed for the flu game.
It's a flu game.
Meanwhile,
you can't have a flu game if you're doing load management stuff.
No, can't. Flu game is giving way to I just don't want to play next game.
Really quick, my buddy Adam was out at the Super Bowl. He was the pitcher. Him and I were the two best pitchers in town growing up. We were the two pitchers in high school. Every other game, we pitched every other game. He's 5'6". I was 6'7" at the time. We pitched every other game. We had a state tournament game. Our high school coach was also our gym teacher.
Okay.
So we have a high school state tournament game. Adam is sick as a dog. And we were reminiscing about this the other day. Sick as a dog on like a Wednesday afternoon. We got a game that day. He misses all of school, but you got to be in school to play. You can't miss school. So he slept in our coach's office the entire day just to make sure that he was in school. Probably had like 103, 104 degree temperature, and it was 98 degrees out that day. 98 degrees. So he rested in the phys ed office the entire day, goes out, pitches all 7 innings. We win by 1 to move on in the state tournament. Just reminiscing about that game. But he was like, he had 1 out to go. I was playing first base. I went over to like, hey, come on, man, 1 more. And he was like ready to pass out. Seriously. So I give him like a little encouragement. Hey, 1 more, get it. He goes, don't move, don't leave. So he's a little guy, right? He laid on my chest for like a second. It turns into like 10 seconds. Like he took like a little power nap. I was trying to leave. He's like, he just says, wait a second. He just like lays. He's like, all right, I'm good. Goes back, throws the last pitch, and then like collapses. We got like ice all over him and everything. To win this, we didn't win the state tournament, but to move on in the state tournament, to win a couple more games.
You never won state?
You know what? I don't want to bring it up because we were in the Eastern Mass Finals and lost 1-0 on a walk-off. We were 1 game away from
1-0
state. And I was the pitcher, and it was an 0-2 Carver High School. Carver. This kid pitched like every game for them. And Adam, we had a leadoff triple.
It's possible. Just do it.
It's not possible. Leadoff triple, stranded at third base, and we didn't score. So we lost 1-0 on a walk-off my junior year. And then senior year, game earlier, we had all this rain, so I had to come back on 2 days rest. Gave up a couple runs early. We lost 5-4. Lost 5-4. So we lost by 1 both times, and we were 44-4 our final 2 years.
And didn't win state.
And did not. We were supposed to be the state champs, but we did.
He didn't.
Did not.
Didn't do it.
Adam did his part, though. He didn't lose either of his final games. I did. But, yeah, thanks for bringing it up.
It's all right.
It's just a Wednesday. Wednesday rambles here. But my point was, appreciate all the, people don't like you. Some people come in just to give bad comments.
Yeah, you'll find
my point was
Adam quite common.
Adam played through it. Why can't these $50 million basketball players? Why can't they do it?
Yeah, I mean, look, I do feel like the money's gotten so high right now that, like, unless there's an acute medical reason for you not to be playing the game, you should probably be playing the game.
Play the game. Just play through it.
Right.
All right. Well, we got tomorrow's show 9 a.m. It's not a. We're going to do off-season storylines. Biggest off-season storylines.
First Thursday show with no prediction, right? With no game
previews.
Game preview.
So it could be anything.
It could be anything.
Could be anything. Any Thursday. All right, that's it for us today. We'll see you again tomorrow, 9 a.m. More. Check the mic.